Hello everyone. Welcome to Dead Time Stories. I know many of you enjoy listening to these videos as you fall asleep. So before you drift off, I'd love for you to leave a comment letting me know where in the world you're tuning in from. And if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, now let's get comfortable, relax, and dive into tonight's story. The road was a ribbon strangled by trees, each pine leaning inward as if conspiring against her. Sarah's sedan rattled over gravel, the tires snapping stones like brittle bones. Her phone sat dead on the passenger seat, its signal lost 20 minutes back. She muttered under her breath, half to herself. Almost there, just a house, just an old house. But the letter in her pocket burned like a secret. Her grandmother's handwriting, impossible, since she had died years ago, had been too precise to dismiss. Go to Weatherby Lane. The house is yours now. Don't go upstairs after midnight. Her grandmother, strict as iron, had never been one for riddles. And yet the words had been waiting for her, pressed in ink that hadn't faded. The house revealed itself suddenly, a hulking silhouette crouched on a rise. Its roofline sagged, like shoulders bent under decades of silence. The windows glimmered faintly with her headlights, though the glass was filmed with dust. She cut the engine. The world fell still. No crickets. No wind. Not even the whisper of trees. Sarah gripped the keys, hesitating. Her eyes darted upward, and froze. The curtain in the upstairs window stirred. A brief, deliberate motion. Someone was inside. Her chest tightened. She whispered aloud, as though her voice might break the spell. "Hello?" The forest gave no reply. Finally, she stepped out. Gravel popped beneath her boots. Her breath curled white in the cold air, though it wasn't nearly cold enough for frost. She wrapped her coat tighter and faced the house. Its porch waited, crooked and vine-choked, as if daring her to step closer. And somewhere in the distance, though she couldn't say where, came the sound of a door slamming. The porch groaned under Sarah's weight as she climbed the steps. Each board flexed and popped like something exhaling beneath her. The smell hit her then, damp wood and something sour, like a cellar left shut too long. Her flashlight beam swept across the front door. Its pane had peeled into curling flakes, pale as parchment. A rusted knocker hung crooked in the center, shaped like a lion's head. She raised her hand to touch it but paused when she noticed. The brass beneath the rust gleamed faintly, polished by recent use. Someone had been here. Her throat tightened. "Hello?" she called, voice echoing against the trees. "Is anyone inside?" Silence. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the knob. To her surprise, it turned easily. The hinges wailed as the door drifted inward, revealing a darkness thicker than the night behind her. She stepped across the threshold. The air changed immediately, stale, heavy, tinged with dust and the faintest trace of smoke. Her light cut a narrow path across the entryway. A staircase rose directly ahead, its banister veined with cobwebs. To her left, an arched doorway led into what looked like a parlor. To her right, a dining room stretched long and narrow, its tables still dressed with a mildewed lace cloth. The door creaked shut behind her. Her heart lurched. She spun, beam shaking wildly, but the entryway stood empty. She tried the knob again. It refused to turn. Locked, though she hadn't heard a key. Sarah forced a laugh, sharp and thin. "Old houses settle," she muttered, as though the words might soothe her nerves. "That's all this is." But then she heard it, a footstep overhead. Slow. Deliberate. Her flashlight snapped upward toward the ceiling. The boards above her groaned, and then silence returned. Sarah swallowed hard, backing into the parlor. The faint outlines of furniture loomed in the beam, armchairs shrouded in yellowing sheets, a fireplace choked with ashes long gone gray. And on the mantel sat a photograph. Her heart stuttered. It was her grandmother. Younger, unsmiling, standing in front of this very house. A shiver threaded through her spine. "How?" she whispered. But before she could finish, something shifted at the top of the stairs. The shadows seemed to lean forward, as though the house itself were listening. Sarah's hand shook as she set the photograph back onto the mantel. The glass in the frame was cold to the touch, as if it had been kept outside in winter air. She rubbed her fingertips together, unease knotting in her stomach. Her flashlight swept across the parlor again. Dust motes swirled in its glow, dancing like ash. The white sheets over the furniture seemed to bulge slightly, shapes hidden beneath, as though the chairs themselves hunched forward to listen. Just furniture, she told herself, though her voice sounded small. The dining room drew her next, its long table stretching toward shadow. Plates sat where someone had once eaten, edges rimmed in grime. A fork clung stubbornly to one dish, and when she leaned close she realized there were scratches on the porcelain, deep gouges, as if someone had scraped too hard. She backed away quickly. A doorway on the far side opened into the kitchen. The smell hit her first, stale grease and something faintly metallic, like old pennies. Pots hung above the stove, their bottoms blackened. On the counter sat a kettle, its lid askew. She froze. The kettle was still warm. Her breath caught in her throat. Someone was here. She whispered, barely daring. "Hello? Is someone living here?" The silence seemed to grow heavier, pressing down against her ears. Then, from upstairs, came another sound, this time, not a footstep but the creak of a door hinge, slow and deliberate. Her flashlight jittered toward the staircase. Every instinct screamed for her to leave, to force the front door open and run into the trees. But the memory of her grandmother's voice, stern, commanding, echoed inside her head. "Go to Weatherby Lane. The house is yours now." Sarah gripped the banister, testing its strength. The wood was slick with dust, but solid. She raised her foot to the first step, then froze. A whisper drifted down from above. It wasn't words, not exactly. More like breath shaped into syllables, soft and urgent, too low to understand. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice louder than she intended. The whisper cut off instantly. And then, in the silence, something else stirred, a slow, rhythmic tapping, like fingernails against glass. It came from the parlor. She turned just in time to see the curtain at the front window shift. Not from wind, there was none. The fabric pulled inward, toward the room, as though fingers had pinched it from outside. Her flashlight beam darted over the glass. There was nothing. Only her reflection staring back, pale and trembling. But the tapping continued, steady, insistent, as if whatever waited outside wanted to be let in. The tapping at the window grew sharper, impatient. Sarah's light swept across the glass again, her pulse racing. Nothing stood outside, no shape, no figure. Just the reflection of her own wide eyes and the faint shimmer of the trees beyond. But the curtain still tugged inward, drawn by invisible fingers. Her chest tightened. "This isn't real," she whispered, as if saying it aloud could banish the sight. "It's just air pressure, old fabric, that's all." The words felt hollow even as she spoke them. Then the sound shifted. From above came another noise, 3 heavy steps, deliberate, pausing between each. The ceiling groaned as if bearing a great weight. Sarah's throat tightened. She remembered the warning, carved into her memory as sharply as the ink on that letter, "Don't go upstairs after midnight." She glanced at her watch. 12:07. Her stomach dropped. Somehow, time had slipped while she wasn't watching. The tapping at the window stopped. Silence swelled again, so deep it rang in her ears. And then a voice. Not a whisper, not a trick of her mind. A voice, clear and low, drifting down from the upper floor. "Sarah!" Her legs nearly gave out. She clutched the banister to stay upright, heart hammering against her ribs. No one had spoken her name since she entered. Her beam wavered up the stairs, cutting through shadow. For a moment she thought she saw something, a figure at the landing, tall and still, its features swallowed by darkness. When she blinked, it was gone. She staggered back into the parlor, her flashlight bouncing across the shrouded furniture. The photograph of her grandmother glinted on the mantel. She moved toward it, desperate for something familiar, but her sleeve brushed the sheet covering a chair. It shifted beneath her touch. Sarah froze. The shape under the fabric rose slightly, like something sitting up from its slumber. With a strangled cry, she yanked her hand back. The sheet fell flat again, limp and harmless. Dust swirled. Her chest heaved. "No," she whispered. "No, I didn't see that. I didn't." But upstairs, the voice called again, closer this time. "Sarah." It was her grandmother's voice. Sarah's flashlight shook in her hand, its beam jerking over the walls and ceiling like a trapped moth. That voice, her grandmother's voice, impossible, dead for decades, lingered in the air. Her throat was dry, but she forced the words out. "Who's there?" The house answered with silence, thick and suffocating. Then, a door creaked overhead, followed by the faint scuff of something dragging across the floorboards. Her instincts screamed to leave, to run, but the front door had locked itself behind her. The kitchen side door, maybe? She turned toward it, her shoes whispering against the warped wood floor. The kitchen was darker now, the shadows heavier, as if the light from her flashlight couldn't quite penetrate. She swept the beam across the counters. The kettle still sat on the stove, but now steam curled lazily from its spout. Sarah froze. Her hand flew to the stove dials. All of them were set to OFF. She reached out, trembling, and touched the kettle's handle. It was icy cold. Her stomach twisted. She dropped it with a clatter that echoed through the house. From upstairs came a laugh. Low, breathy, unmistakably female. "Grandma?" The word tumbled out before Sarah could stop it, her voice cracking like a child's. No reply. Only another dragging sound, closer now, as though something was moving just beyond the top of the stairs. Her eyes darted to the back of the kitchen. A narrow hallway branched off, lined with closed doors. One hung open slightly, revealing what looked like a study. She stepped inside, desperate for somewhere to hide or at least catch her breath. The room smelled of old paper and dust. Bookshelves sagged beneath the weight of thick, leather-bound volumes. On the desk lay an oil lamp, its wick blackened. Papers were scattered across the surface, yellowed with age. She set her flashlight down and rifled through the pages. The handwriting made her chest tighten. It was her grandmother's again. Journal entries, hundreds of them, each dated. She flipped to the last page, dated 20 years ago. "The house is not mine. It never was. I only keep it quiet as long as I obey. Never upstairs after midnight. Never answer when it calls my name." Sarah's breath stilled. The words blurred in her vision. And then the voice came again, right behind her this time, a whisper that brushed her ear. "Sarah." She spun, light shaking across the room. No one was there. Sarah's knees wobbled as she clutched the desk for balance. The whisper had been so close, warm breath against her ear, syllables curling like smoke. But the room was empty. She forced herself to breathe, steadying the flashlight in her grip. Its beams swept over the shelves. Leather spines cracked with age, their gold lettering dulled. Dust clung to everything, except for a few gaps where books had been removed recently. Someone else had been here. She turned back to the desk. The journal entries sprawled in her grandmother's neat, slanted hand. Some passages rambled about gardening, cooking, the weather, but others shifted into something darker. The upstairs watches. It listens through the walls. When the clock strikes 12, I hear it moving. It never tires. I cannot let the children know. Sarah swallowed hard and flipped further back. If I leave, it follows. The house is only a shell. What lives inside is older than wood or stone. It feeds on us when we listen. When we believe. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The words blurred, but she forced herself to keep reading. One page had been torn free, leaving only the jagged edge of paper. A sudden noise snapped her head up. The study door, the one she had left ajar, was swinging shut. Slowly, with no draft to move it. "Stop it," Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "Just stop." But the door clicked shut, sealing her inside. Darkness thickened, her flashlight's glow paling against the walls. She tried the knob, it turned, but the door wouldn't open, as though something heavy pressed against it from the other side. Then came the sound. From above, from the forbidden floor, slow, deliberate footsteps pacing back and forth. Boards creaked, dust sifted down from the ceiling, settling on the desk. Her heart raced. She remembered the letter, the warning. Don't go upstairs after midnight. She backed toward the shelves, eyes darting everywhere. A glint of metal caught her beam, something wedged between two books. She tugged it free. It was another envelope. Her grandmother's handwriting again. The paper trembled in Sarah's hand as she unfolded it. If you are reading this, it means I have failed. The house will not let me go, and soon it will call you. You must resist. Do not trust its voice, no matter whose mouth it wears. Burn the stairs if you must. Above all, never open the red door. Sarah froze. There had been no mention of a red door before. And yet, as the footsteps upstairs halted, she swore she heard the faint squeal of a knob turning. Sarah's pulse hammered as she clutched the letter, its paper dampening in her sweaty grip. Never open the red door. The words throbbed in her mind, louder than her own heartbeat. But she hadn't seen a red door. Not yet. The footsteps resumed above, slower this time, as if pacing deliberately, letting her hear. Boards creaked, groaned, then stopped directly overhead. Silence pressed down so hard she could hear her own breathing. Then came the scrape. Something dragging across the floor upstairs. Heavy, wood against wood. Her flashlight beam quivered as she swept it back across the desk. Maybe there was more, something her grandmother had hidden. She yanked open drawers, scattering old envelopes, dried pens, scraps of brittle paper. In the bottom drawer, her fingers brushed something smooth. She pulled out a brass key. Long, ornate, its bow etched with strange looping symbols she didn't recognize. Her stomach clenched. This had to be for the door. The pacing above shifted, quicker now, like excitement. Sarah backed toward the study door, shoving her shoulder against it until the weight holding it closed relented. It swung open with a sigh of stale air. She stumbled into the hall, clutching the key tight. The house groaned around her, as though aware of her discovery. The staircase loomed, banister webbed with dust, shadows spilling down its length like a curtain. Her beam wavered over the top landing, and for the briefest instant she saw it, a door at the far end of the hall. Its paint scarlet, dulled with age but unmistakable against the gray wallpaper. The red door. Her breath caught. She dropped her gaze immediately, heart pounding, the warning thrumming in her skull. Never open the red door. But even as she stood frozen at the foot of the stairs, the knob of that distant door turned. Slowly. Smoothly. A metal squeal carried down the steps like a scream stretched thin. Sarah whispered, "No, don't." The door cracked open an inch. From the gap, darkness spilled thicker than shadow, like ink bleeding into the hall. And within it, faint but clear, came her grandmother's voice once more. "Sarah, come up! Bring me the key!" Her legs wavered. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But her fingers, almost against her will, tightened around the brass key as if it were pulling her forward. Sarah gripped the banister, knuckles white, every muscle trembling. The red door stood at the far end of the upstairs hall, cracked open just enough to let that impossible darkness seep through. "Sarah!" Her grandmother's voice coaxed again, patient and calm, like it had been when Sarah was a child refusing medicine. "It's all right. You're safe here." Her throat closed. That tone, it was exactly right down to the lilt, the softness. But her grandmother had been gone for 20 years. The key grew warmer in her palm, as though responding to the voice. Sarah shook her head hard, whispering fiercely to herself. "It's not her. It's not her." The house didn't like that. A sudden bang rattled the upstairs hall, so loud it shook dust loose from the ceiling. She stumbled back as grit sprinkled her hair and shoulders. Her flashlight jerked up in time to see one of the other doors, plain, wooden, slammed shut with a violent crack. Then another. And another. Doors slammed up and down the hallway above, rapid, furious, until only the red door remained ajar. The voice slipped out once more, sweeter this time. Don't be afraid. Just open it. You'll understand. Her legs twitched forward involuntarily, and she gasped, realizing the house wasn't just luring her, it was pulling. The closer she stood to the stairs, the heavier her body felt, like the gravity there was stronger. She dug her heels into the floorboards, retreating into the parlor. The photograph of her grandmother still sat on the mantel, glass glinting in her flashlight's beam. She snatched it up, clutching it tight. "Tell me this isn't you," she whispered, staring at the young, stern face frozen in black and white. "Tell me you're not upstairs." The photograph grew colder in her hand, so cold she hissed and dropped it. The glass shattered across the hearth. Silence fell again. Then came the sound of something descending the stairs. Not footsteps, too soft for that. More like fabric brushing wood, slow, dragging, closer with each breath. Sarah's beam snapped toward the staircase. She saw nothing, only shadows shifting, leaning, as though something moved just beyond her sight. And then, for the first time, she saw it. A hand, pale, withered, gripping the banister. The hand clung to the banister, its skin as thin as parchment, veins dark against the pale flesh. The fingers were long, too long, nails sharp and yellow. Sarah's breath snagged in her chest. She staggered back into the parlor, flashlight beams shaking wildly over the stairs. "Grandma?" she croaked, though her voice was barely a whisper. The hand flexed, curling into a claw before easing again, relaxed, as if amused. Then, slowly, it descended another step. A forearm emerged, skeletal beneath the sleeve of an old-fashioned dress, the fabric moth-eaten and gray. Her heart hammered so violently she thought her ribs might crack. "No, no, you're not her. You're not." The voice came again, lilting, tender. "Of course I am. Don't you recognize me? You've grown so much, Sarah." Her throat closed. The voice was perfect. Every note, every inflection. She wanted, needed, to believe. But the journal's warning thundered in her mind. It wears the voices of those you love. She backed further into the room, her heel crunching against the shattered glass of the photo frame. The figure took another step down. Now the face emerged. It was her grandmother's. Pale, smiling faintly, eyes dark with tenderness. For an instant, Sarah's chest tightened with grief so sharp it almost toppled her. Then the smile widened, too wide. The lips split at the corners, stretching until the grin cut nearly to the jaw. The skin around it cracked, black veins spiderwebbing outward. Sarah screamed. The thing surged forward, faster than she thought it could move, slamming against the bottom of the stairs. The whole house shuddered with the impact. Dust rained down, furniture rattled under their shrouds. Sarah bolted for the study, heart pounding. She slammed the door behind her, fumbling the lock with trembling hands. The wood vibrated instantly, something pounding against the other side. "Sarah," the voice cooed, softer now, almost playful. "Don't hide from me." She braced the desk against the door, panting. The key still pulsed hot in her hand, tugging faintly toward the stairs. And in that moment, she realized something dreadful. The thing hadn't wanted her to open the red door immediately. It wanted her to carry the key up there herself. The pounding at the door slowed, turning rhythmic, 3 thuds, then silence, 3 thuds again, like a mocking knock. Dust sifted down from the ceiling with each impact. Sarah shoved her shoulder harder against the desk, though she knew it wouldn't hold forever. The key in her palm felt hotter now, almost burning, as if eager to leap toward the thing outside. She jammed it into her pocket, trying to muffle its heat. Think, she muttered, scanning the study. The bookshelves loomed, sagging under decades of weight. The journals, the papers, they meant something, but survival came first. Her light swept the far wall. At first she thought it was only cracked plaster, but the lines formed a pattern, a rectangle etched faintly into the wall itself. A hidden door. She dropped to her knees, running her fingers over the edges until they found a small indentation. She pressed. The panel gave way with a dry groan, swinging inward to reveal a narrow passage. Air gusted out, damp and earthy, smelling of mold and stone. The pounding stopped instantly. Her chest tightened. It was listening. She hesitated only a second before ducking inside, pulling the panel closed behind her. The darkness swallowed her whole until her flashlight beam returned, a weak, wavering cone in the claustrophobic tunnel. The walls were stone here, rough and sweating with moisture. Cobwebs clung to her face and hair as she moved forward, forcing herself not to panic. Each step squelched faintly on the damp floor. Somewhere behind her, faintly through the wall, the voice drifted again. "You can't hide, Sarah. I know where you are. I always know." Her stomach twisted. The sound wasn't muffled by stone at all. It seemed to slide along the walls themselves, following her no matter where she turned. After what felt like endless crawling, the passage forked. One side sloped upward, the other down. She paused, light flicking between the two. From above came the faintest glow. A reddish light, pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. Her pocket burned. The key wanted her to go that way. But from the downward slope came another sound, a faint whisper of running water, the promise of something living, natural, untouched by the house. Her hands trembled. Choice pressed heavy against her ribs. Follow the key's pull toward the red glow, or turn downward into the dark, hoping the water led to escape. Behind her, something scraped inside the hidden passage. She wasn't alone down here. The scraping behind her grew louder, like fingernails dragged across stone. Sarah's chest heaved as she aimed the flashlight back the way she'd come. The passage yawned black and empty, but the sound pressed closer. Her hand brushed her pocket, where the key burned hotter and hotter, tugging her toward the red glow above. Every part of her body screamed not to go, that to climb would be to surrender. She turned instead toward the downward slope, forcing her legs to move. "Not that way," she whispered through gritted teeth. "Not for you." The passage sloped deeper, colder. Her shoes slipped on the damp stone, and water soon lapped at her ankles. The sound ahead grew clearer, the trickle of a stream, running beneath the house itself. Relief surged through her chest, an exit maybe. She waded faster, light dancing on the slick walls. The tunnel widened into a cavern, its ceiling lost in shadow. Stalactites dripped slowly into a black pool at the center. Sarah's beam caught movement in the water. She froze. At first she thought it was fish, silver flashes breaking the surface, but then she saw the faces. Pale, eyeless, mouths opening and closing silently as they floated just beneath the water. Dozens of them, their features blurred as if half-formed. She stumbled back, nearly slipping. The water rippled violently, the faces bobbing closer, their mouths widening into soundless screams. Her flashlight flickered, and then the voice filled the cavern, deep and resonant, vibrating through the stone. "You chose wrong." The key in her pocket seared against her leg. She yanked it out with a cry, hurling it toward the pool. It struck the surface with a hiss, sinking into the dark. The cavern erupted. The water churned, the faces rising higher, mouths stretching impossibly wide. A wind howled through the tunnel, though there was nowhere for air to move. Sarah shielded her face, staggering backward toward the wall. The hidden passage behind her slammed shut with a thunderous crack. She was trapped. The faces began to climb out of the water. Limbs sprouted where there had been none, pale hands clawing onto the stone. Their eyeless sockets turned toward her. Sarah screamed, her voice echoing back at her from every dripping wall. And through the cacophony, softer than all the rest, came her grandmother's voice once more, gentle, patient, inevitable. "Sarah, come back upstairs." The first of the pale figures dragged itself fully from the pool. Its body was warped, skin slick and glistening like wax, limbs bending wrong as it struggled upright. The eyeless face tilted towards Sarah, mouth opening in a wet, ragged breath. Others followed. One after another, hands slapping stone, torsos heaving upward. They came in silence, their only sound the drip of water falling from their bodies. Dozens of them, each more malformed than the last, all sharing the same hollow features. Sarah's scream caught in her throat. She backed against the cavern wall, her flashlight beam jittering across their pale forms. The nearest one raised a hand, not reaching for her but pointing back toward the passage she had come from. "No," she whispered, shaking her head violently. "I'm not going back there." The figure shuddered, its jaw working open. A voice slipped from its throat, not its own, but her father's, warm and familiar. "Upstairs, Sarah. Please!" Her knees buckled. "No, no, stop it!" Another figure croaked, her mother's voice, soft with grief. "You'll be safe if you listen." The chorus grew as more mouths opened, each one pouring out a different voice from her past, friends, teachers, people long dead. The cavern echoed with them, the weight of memory pressing against her ears until she clamped her hands over them. "I won't!" she cried. Her flashlight flickered again and went out. The cavern plunged into darkness. Something cold brushed her ankle, fingers slick and clammy. She kicked out wildly, stumbling sideways. Her hand struck the wet wall, and she groped blindly along it, trying to find the hidden passage, the seam in the stone. But the wall was smooth now. Seamless. The way back was gone. The air filled with the sound of dragging, slapping footsteps. Dozens of them, closing in. Their voices had stopped. Only the sound of their bodies moving now, wet and relentless. Sarah clawed at the wall until her nails tore. "Please!" she begged, not sure to whom. Then, far above, through layers of stone, came the toll of a bell. A single, heavy chime that shook the cavern. Midnight again, or some echo of it. The figures froze. Every head turned upward toward the sound. And then, in unison, they whispered one word. "Door." The word lingered in the cavern, whispered from dozens of mouths. Door. Their voices weren't hers anymore, not family, not friends, just a single, unified chant. The sound reverberated through the stone, a low vibration that rattled her bones. Sarah pressed her back harder against the wall, her chest heaving. "No, no, I threw the key away. You can't make me." The figure stood perfectly still, dripping water in steady rhythms, like clocks ticking in the dark. Then, one by one, they turned toward the far side of the cavern. There, across the black pool, a faint red glow pulsed against the stone. Sarah's stomach dropped. It was the same light she had seen from the tunnel above, the glow of the red door, impossibly reaching down here. The figures began to move, shuffling and dragging, not toward her but toward the glow. They entered the water silently, slipping beneath the surface without a ripple, their pallid faces vanishing into the black. The glow brightened, flickering like a heartbeat. Sarah's flashlight sputtered back to life in her hand, weak and unsteady. She aimed it across the pool and gasped. A staircase had formed, stone steps rising directly from the water, slick and uneven, leading toward the glow. She staggered back. "No. No, you're not real. None of this is real." But the ground beneath her shifted, the cavern floor tilting slightly, urging her forward. Pebbles rolled toward the water. She dropped to her knees, clawing at the stone, but the slope grew steeper by the second. The house was pulling her. Her flashlight beams shook as she fought to stand, but the incline betrayed her. With a cry, she slid forward, skidding into the icy water. The cold punched the air from her lungs, and for a moment she flailed wildly, terrified the faces would surface and drag her under. But the pool was empty. Only the steps rose before her, gleaming in the red glow. Behind her, the cavern was gone. The walls had melted into darkness, leaving only the staircase and the glow above. The voice came again, her grandmother's soft, coaxing. "Don't be afraid, Sarah. You've already started climbing." She looked down. Her foot was on the first step. Sarah froze on the step, her body trembling, heart ricocheting against her ribs. She hadn't moved, she was sure of it, yet her boot was firmly planted on the first slab of stone. The cold of it seeped through the sole, numbing her toes. She tried to step back into the water, but her leg refused. Muscles locked, stiff as iron. Her body leaned forward instead, drawn toward the pulsing glow above. "No!" she hissed through clenched teeth, clutching the banister of air where none existed. "You don't get to decide." "I'm not." Her foot lifted. It came down on the next step with a wet slap, as if compelled by invisible strings. Sarah sobbed, shaking her head violently. Stop it! Stop it! She grabbed her thigh with both hands, trying to force her leg still, but her body betrayed her. Another step. Then another. The stairs spiraled upward through blackness, endless, carved from the same stone as the cavern. The glow above throbbed with each beat of her heart, brighter, closer, promising. You're doing so well. Her grandmother's voice soothed from the unseen heights. You're almost home. Sarah spat, her voice hoarse. You're not her. She's dead. She's gone. The red glow flickered violently, and for the first time the voice hardened, sharp and cold. Ungrateful child. Her knees buckled, but still her body climbed, step after step. The walls of the spiral closed tighter as she ascended, brushing her shoulders, then scraping her arms as if the stone itself wanted to claim her. Her flashlight flickered and died again, but the red glow lit her way. At last, the staircase ended. She stood trembling before a wooden door set into the stone. Its paint was scarlet, deep and rich, glistening as though wet. The knob gleamed faintly, brass etched with the same curling symbols as the key she had thrown away. And yet, when she reached for her pocket, the key was there. Hot. Waiting. Sarah's breath caught. She hurled it to the ground. It clattered once against the step and vanished. The door pulsed. From behind it came a sound like breathing, deep and slow, filling the narrow stairwell with its rhythm. Each exhale made the walls sweat. Each inhale drew her forward until her palm hovered over the knob without her realizing. The voice softened again, dripping with false warmth. Be a good girl, Sarah. Open the door. Her fingers twitched. Sarah's hand hovered over the knob, her skin prickling with heat radiating from the metal. Every breath from the other side dragged her closer, like invisible threads tugging her bones forward. No, she whispered, digging her nails into her palm until blood welled. I'm not opening it. The door shuddered, just once, as though something inside shifted against it. A wet thump followed, then another. The wood bulged outward briefly before sinking back into place. Her grandmother's voice slid through the cracks, soft and coaxing. It's me, Sarah. You've kept me waiting so long. Don't you want to see me again? Tears stung her eyes. For one awful heartbeat she wanted nothing more than to believe, to fling the door wide and fall into those arms she remembered, warm, stern, safe. But the journals echoed in her head, it wears the voices of those you love. Her throat tightened. You're not her, she croaked. You never were. The voice stopped. Silence settled, thicker than before, oppressive. Sarah's heart pounded. She dared hope, just for a moment, that refusing had worked. Then the breathing changed. Louder. Faster. The red paint on the door began to blister and bubble, swelling as if heated from within. Something struck the wood from the other side, once, twice, then a rapid flurry of blows. The door shook violently, dust and grit raining down from the stone frame. Sarah staggered back down the steps, hands clutching the slick walls. The voice roared now, no longer gentle but guttural, layered with countless tones. Open! A long crack split the center of the door, leaking a glow not red but black, so dark it hurt her eyes to see. The air turned thick and hot, reeking of iron and rot. She screamed and turned to flee down the spiral stairs, but the stone shifted under her. Steps collapsed like rotting wood, tumbling into the blackness below. The door slammed once more, a final blow, and the crack widened. Fingers, too many fingers, slid through the gap, curling and scraping at the stone. And then the voice spoke again, calm, inevitable. You will let me in, or I will come through on my own. The fingers wriggled through the splintered crack, pale and wet, bending at angles no joints should allow. They scraped against the stone frame, leaving streaks like soot. Sarah pressed herself against the narrowing stairwell, breath shallow, eyes locked on the widening split. The door bowed forward under pressure, its hinges shrieking in protest. Stay back! She shouted, though her voice was swallowed by the roar of the thing on the other side. Her flashlight flickered, casting fractured light across the scene. In the strobing glow, the fingers became arms, the arms became shadows, and the shadows swelled to shapes that nearly filled the stairwell. Each time the beam blinked off, the limbs appeared longer, closer. She remembered the journal's final warning, never open the red door. But what if it didn't matter? What if the door opened itself? The brass key burned in her pocket again. She knew she had thrown it away, watched it vanish, but there it was, searing her thigh, demanding. She clawed it out, nearly dropping it as the heat blistered her palm. The door groaned, bulged outward. Wood splintered, raining shards onto the steps. From the widening gap spilled not light, not shadow, but something thicker. Black smoke oozed into the stairwell, carrying a stench of rot and copper. The smoke coiled around her legs like snakes, tugging her toward the door. Sarah screamed, digging her nails into the stone wall, but the surface seemed to soften under her touch, as if the house itself was giving her up. "Sarah," the voice crooned again, not coaxing now but triumphant. "You're already mine." The key pulsed, demanding to be used. Her hand twitched toward the knob against her will, trembling, slick with sweat. "No," she sobbed. "I won't. I won't." Her body betrayed her. The key turned in her fingers, lifting toward the lock as if guided by invisible hands. The door bulged once more, a final convulsion, and through the widening gap she glimpsed an eye. Not her grandmother's. Not human. It was vast, lidless, burning with hunger. The eye swiveled, its gaze locking onto her. No pupil, no iris, just a sphere of black that seemed to stretch forever inward, a tunnel into something ancient and ravenous. Sarah's scream tore from her throat. The key twisted in her hand, sliding toward the lock. She fought it, muscles straining, but her body jerked like a marionette, strings pulled tight. The door's hinges shrieked as the crack widened further. An arm forced its way through, long, pale, skin stretched thin over joints that bent backward. Fingers groped the stairwell, nails scoring deep grooves into the stone. "Open!" the voice bellowed, 1,000 tones overlapping, shaking the walls. The staircase convulsed, steps crumbling beneath her boots. She clutched the wall, the stones slick with sweat and blood from her shredded nails. The smoke thickened, choking her throat, pressing into her lungs. Her grandmother's face flickered in her mind, stern, watchful, the woman who had raised her until 12. And then the journals, the warnings written in a hand that had known this terror. Never open the red door. Sarah's desperation sharpened. She tightened her grip on the key, then with a ragged cry, slammed it against the stone wall. The brass bent, cracked. She struck again, and again, until the key shattered, scattering fragments down the steps. The reaction was immediate. The arm recoiled violently, fingers twitching, clawing the air. The eye widened, then split down the center, revealing not a second eye but a maw lined with teeth that gnawed against the doorframe. A scream like grinding metal filled the stairwell. The smoke writhed in fury, surging upward in waves. The door slammed shut, boards knitting back together, though the wood now bled, red paint running like fresh wounds. Sarah collapsed against the wall, gasping, the broken key pieces cooling at her feet. The house was silent again, but only for a moment. Then, from somewhere far below, perhaps the cavern, perhaps deeper, came the sound of more doors opening. Dozens of them. The silence fractured as the sound carried up the spiral, doors slamming open one after another. The echoes overlapped, a chorus of splintering wood and groaning hinges. Sarah pressed her palms to her ears, but the noise wasn't just around her. It was inside her skull. She stumbled down a few steps, boots crunching on the fragments of the broken key. Her flashlight flickered back to life, casting its beam downward into the black throat of the stairwell. There were doors in the stone. She hadn't seen them before, but now they lined the walls all the way down, dozens, maybe hundreds. Some small, some tall, some narrow enough only for a child. Their colors varied, black, gray, peeling white, but each glowed faintly around the edges, pulsing in time with the throb of her own heartbeat. From behind them came the sounds. Knocking. Scraping. Soft, frantic whispers. She clutched her stomach, nausea rolling through her. The air tasted metallic, like pennies sucked on too long. "No," she whispered. No, there was only one. But the house had tricked her. The red door had been a warning, yes, but also a lure. A distraction. She stumbled down another flight, nearly tripping over a broken stair. As her light passed across the nearest door, she saw a face pressed against the crack between wood and frame. It was her own face. She recoiled violently, nearly losing her grip on the wall. The face blinked once, lips moving soundlessly, then retreated back into shadow. From above came a groan, the red door flexing again, though still closed. The house was restless now, every seam alive with motion. The whispers grew louder, overlapping into a babble. Some called her name, some begged for help, some sobbed. Others laughed. Sarah pressed both hands over her ears, screaming, "Stop it! Just stop!" For a heartbeat, the noise ceased. And then a single voice, clear and calm, cut through the dark. Her grandmother's again. "You can't run from it, Sarah. The house has more doors than you can count. Sooner or later you'll open one." The whisper of her grandmother's voice faded, replaced by the steady groan of straining hinges. Sarah froze mid-step, her light jerking toward the sound. One of the smaller doors, waist-high, its paint a sickly gray, was trembling. The knob rattled, the wood bowing outward as though something inside pressed against it. "No!" Sarah begged, stumbling backward. "Stay shut! Stay shut!" The door burst open. A figure spilled out, crawling on all fours. Its limbs were thin as sticks, joints bent wrong, skin translucent and wet. The thing's head turned toward her, and she realized with horror that it had no face at all, just smooth flesh stretched where features should be. It scuttled forward with startling speed, claws scraping sparks from the stone steps. Sarah screamed and swung her flashlight at it. The beam struck the thing, and for an instant it froze, shuddering. The skin where the light hit blistered, peeling back to reveal raw, glistening tissue beneath. She didn't wait. She bolted down the stairs, light trembling in her hand. The faceless creature screeched behind her, a sound like tearing metal, and resumed its pursuit. Doors banged open as she passed, more shapes writhing from their thresholds, some tall and skeletal, others swollen and dragging themselves by their arms. The stairwell became a cacophony of pounding claws, wet gasps, and hollow laughter. "Run, Sarah!" Her grandmother's voice called again, now cruel, mocking. "Let's see where the house takes you." Her lungs burned, legs quaking. The spiral seemed endless, steps repeating like a loop, doors flashing past in a blur of colors and shapes. The creatures followed, but none overtook her. It was as if the house wanted the chase to last. Then she saw it, an opening ahead. A break in the stone wall, wider than the hidden panel she had found in the study. Beyond it glimmered faint light, not red but pale and cool, like moonlight on snow. Hope surged. She veered toward it, nearly tumbling in her haste. As she crossed the threshold, the stairwell's noise cut off sharply. The doors, the screams, the pounding, gone. She found herself in a hallway. Wooden floors, faded wallpaper, portraits hanging crooked along the walls. It was the upstairs hall of the house. And at the far end, waiting patiently, stood the red door. Sarah froze, her chest heaving, sweat trickling cold down her back. The house had tricked her again. What had seemed like escape was only another turn in its maze. The hallway stretched impossibly long, lined with portraits whose eyes gleamed in the dim light. She lifted her flashlight, and her breath hitched. The portraits were all of her. Sarah as a child, clutching a doll. Sarah at 12, standing beside her grandmother's coffin. Sarah at 20, staring blankly at a desk in college. Each one captured moments she had lived but never been photographed in. She staggered forward, hand brushing the frame nearest her. The canvas felt warm. Her painted eyes blinked. Sarah yelped and stumbled back, her light skittering down the corridor. At the far end, the red door pulsed, its surface wet as if freshly painted. The knob gleamed faintly, brass teeth like notches cut into its rim. The glow seeping from its edges beat like a heart, and with each pulse the portraits whispered. Closer. Open it. Let us out. The voices overlapped, layered with her own tone, her own voice speaking from dozens of mouths. She clutched her head. No, stop it! Her light flicked across the ceiling, and she gasped. Hands, pale, skeletal hands, clutched the beams, hundreds of them, their fingers hooked into the wood as if holding the hall together. Some twitched when her light passed, nails scratching. The floor trembled under her feet, swelling like a lung drawing breath. She stumbled toward the wall for balance and brushed against another portrait. This one showed her older, lined with wrinkles she did not yet have. A gray-haired version of herself, hand pressed to the red door. Her painted mouth opened as she watched, whispering in a rasp. You can't fight forever. Sarah's knees buckled. Tears blurred her vision. Why me? Why this? The house groaned in reply, the sound of shifting timbers and deep stone. The red door pulsed brighter, and the knob turned halfway on its own. From behind it came the sound of chains snapping, links breaking one by one. Sarah knew with sick certainty. It wasn't waiting for her anymore. It was coming through. The chains behind the red door snapped one after another, echoing through the hall like gunshots. Sarah stumbled backward, flashlight beams stuttering over the floorboards that bulged and writhed beneath her boots. No, no, no! Her voice cracked. You can't come through. I won't let you! The knob twisted further, metal grinding. The door shuddered, paint bubbling, streaks of wet scarlet dripping onto the floor. Each drop sizzled where it landed, burning holes through the wood. Sarah whirled, desperate. Portraits lined the walls, hundreds of her own faces staring, some smiling faintly, some screaming, others watching with flat indifference. She tore one from the wall, hurled it at the door. The canvas stuck fast, and burned. Flames crawled its edges, consuming her painted likeness in seconds before the ashes scattered across the boards. Her stomach heaved. She backed into the opposite wall, eyes darting. A shape glinted beneath one of the crooked portraits, a brass candlestick holder. She snatched it up, the weight solid in her trembling hands. The door groaned louder. A fissure split across its surface, black light spilling out like tar. The portraits hissed in unison, their whispers forming one word. Open! Sarah lifted the candlestick and swung it at the knob with all her strength. Metal clanged, sparks flying. The knob dented but didn't break. She swung again, shrieking with the effort. The door roared. The hall shook violently, portraits rattling against the walls. Dust rained from the ceiling beams as the skeletal hands clutched harder, splinters breaking under their grip. She swung a third time, the candlestick bending on impact. The knob cracked, splitting down the center. Black smoke hissed out, searing her lungs. She coughed, eyes watering. Then silence fell. The door stopped moving. The knob hung broken, dripping black fluid that hissed where it touched the floor. Sarah collapsed to her knees, chest heaving, candlestick slipping from her hand. Relief threatened to wash over her. Until she heard it. A laugh. Low. Deep. From the other side. Not her grandmother's voice. Not even pretending anymore. Something else. Something vast. And then the wood whispered in 100 splintering voices. You cannot break what is already inside. The whispering wood vibrated under Sarah's palms, as though hundreds of mouths pressed against the other side, speaking through splinters. Her stomach lurched. She staggered back, nearly tripping over the warped floorboards. The broken knob oozed black fluid in steady rivulets, pooling on the floor. The liquid spread unnaturally fast, seeping along the hallway like veins, crawling toward the other doors. Sarah scrambled to her feet. No, no, stay in there! She shouted, voice cracking. The portraits began to writhe. Her painted selves twisted inside their frames, hands pressing against the canvas as if trying to break free. One of them, her face at 16, lips trembling, stretched so far forward the surface bulged outward like stretched skin. The black fluid reached its frame. The portrait's mouth split open, and a scream burst forth, not paint, not memory, but sound. Her own scream from years ago, when she'd fallen off her bike and broken her arm. Sarah clapped her hands to her ears, but the sound didn't fade. It was in her skull, vibrating her teeth. The red door pulsed again, each throb shaking the hall. But it no longer strained to open. The thing had found another way out. She sprinted down the hall, shoving past the portraits as they writhed and clawed. The floor warped under her feet, boards buckling, nails popping like gunshots. Halfway down, another door burst open. Not red, this one was painted white, though the color peeled in long strips. A hand shot out, skeletal and slick, grabbing at her ankle. She screamed and kicked, heel smashing bone with a wet crack. The hand released her, retracting into the dark beyond. She staggered upright, nearly losing her grip on the flashlight. Its beam cut jagged arcs across the walls. More doors were trembling now, knobs rattling, hinges squealing. Something pounded from the other side of each one, eager, frantic. The portrait's whispers swelled into a chant. "Let us out, let us out, let us out." Sarah skidded to a halt at the far end of the corridor. A staircase descended sharply downward, vanishing into darkness. No glow this time, no promise of light. Only a void. Behind her, the red door boomed once, twice. The hallway buckled, walls bowing outward as if the house itself were breathing. She didn't think, she ran, plunging into the stairwell as the doors behind her began to burst wide, one by one. The stairs groaned under her weight, each step sagging as if softened by rot. Sarah gripped the rail, though it was slick with something warm, sticky. Her flashlight jittered over the walls, no longer wallpapered wood, but raw stone, damp and striated like muscle. Her lungs burned with every breath. The air grew hotter the deeper she went, heavy with the copper tang of blood. Behind her, doors continued to slam open, one after another. The chorus of voices chased her down the stairwell, overlapping screams and laughter, her name repeated in every possible tone. "Sarah! Sarah! Sarah!" She forced herself lower, boots slipping on steps that seemed to pulse beneath her soles. The staircase twisted in impossible directions, looping back on itself, yet always descending. At last, it spilled her into a cavernous chamber. Her flashlight beams swept across walls studded with doors, hundreds, thousands, stacked from floor to ceiling like scales on a beast. Some small, no larger than cabinets, others towering, stretching into the gloom above. Each one quivered faintly, as though something pressed against it from within. The floor was slick stone, veined with the same black fluid that oozed from the red door upstairs. It streamed in branching rivulets, feeding the doors like roots to a tree. Sarah's breath hitched. This can't be real." Her beam landed on one door larger than the rest, set directly across the chamber. Its surface was scarlet, darker than the upstairs door, the paint fresh and gleaming as if still wet. Chains crisscrossed its surface, anchored deep into the stone. The chains trembled. A low groan rumbled through the chamber, vibrating the air. Dust sifted from above, though Sarah couldn't see a ceiling. She staggered backward, nearly slipping in the black fluid. Her light caught on something else then, a figure, slumped against the wall. Her stomach lurched. It was a woman. Thin, gray-haired, head bowed. A familiar shape. "Grandma?" The word escaped her lips before she could stop it, trembling, desperate. The woman's head lifted slowly. Her face was hollow, skin sagging against bone, eyes empty pits. Her mouth moved, and her voice rasped out like dry leaves. "You came. Just like I did." Sarah's knees weakened. She pressed herself against the slick wall for balance, the flashlight trembling in her hand. The figure straightened with brittle slowness, bones creaking like dry wood. Her grandmother's face, familiar yet wrong, tilted into the beam. Empty sockets stared where eyes should have been, yet Sarah felt the weight of that gaze as surely as if it pierced her. "Grandma?" Sarah's voice cracked. What happened to you?" The mouth twisted into something between a smile and a grimace. The voice rasped, brittle with dust. "I stayed too long. I listened when it called. And when I obeyed, it let me live, like this." Sarah's stomach turned. She shook her head violently. No. You're not her. You can't be. The figure stepped forward, bare feet slapping wetly against the stone. The skin of her arms hung loose, sagging like melted wax. You have her blood. That's why it called to you. It passes from one to the next. Always the next. Sarah backed away, boots slipping in the black fluid. Her beam darted across the massive red door chained in the center of the chamber. The chains rattled faintly, vibrating with each word the figure spoke. You think destroying the key saved you? The hollow voice rasped with a laugh. There are endless keys. Endless doors. It only needed you here. Her throat tightened. Why me? Why not leave me alone? The sockets seemed to deepen, dark pits that pulled at her gaze. Because the house doesn't end. It grows. Every door is a mouth. Every voice it takes feeds the next. And now, Sarah. The figure's head cocked sharply, smile splitting wider. You belong to it too. The chains across the great red door snapped one by one, each break thundering like a cannon. Black fluid surged across the floor, rising around Sarah's ankles. The smaller doors in the chamber quivered violently, knobs rattling. The hollow grandmother lifted her arms, sagging flesh swaying. Her voice layered with others now, dozens, hundreds, overlapping. Open! The floor buckled beneath Sarah, black fluid surging higher. The chamber trembled as if the house itself was descending into the pit with her. And the chains on the massive red door kept breaking. The chamber thundered as another chain snapped, whipping across the floor like a severed serpent. Sparks burst where metal struck stone. Sarah staggered back, the black fluid splashing higher around her calves, burning cold as ice. Her flashlight beam jittered across the walls, catching hundreds of smaller doors trembling in unison. Some bulged outward, wood bending. From others seeped pale fingers, claws, eyeless faces pressing against cracks. The hollow grandmother stepped closer, her sagging arms outstretched. It's almost through. You can feel it, can't you? The weight of it. The hunger. Sarah shook her head violently, tears streaking down her cheeks. I'm not opening anything. I won't. The figure tilted her head, sockets yawning like empty wells. It doesn't matter what you want. Doors don't open for those outside. They open from within. And you, Sarah, you are the within. The floor lurched beneath her. She stumbled to her knees, splashing into the rising black fluid. Her flashlight flickered, and for an instant she saw her reflection in the surface, not her face, but the hollow grandmother's. Her stomach heaved. Another chain snapped. The great door bowed outward, cracks spreading through its surface like veins. From them seeped not light but shadow, thicker than smoke, curling upward into the chamber. The voices of the smaller doors swelled, layered and urgent. Open, open, open! Sarah scrambled to her feet, scanning the walls for anything, any passage, any break. Her light caught on a ladder bolted into the stone, leading upward toward a narrow hatch. She lunged for it, boots slipping in the black. Her fingers caught the rung just as another chain exploded free. The great door shuddered, a booming laugh echoing from beyond. The hollow grandmother shrieked, her voice splitting into countless tones. You can't leave! There is nowhere else! Sarah climbed, sobbing with the effort, lungs burning. The hatch above glowed faintly, not red, not black, but pale, silvery light. Moonlight. Hope flared. She clawed her way upward, the house shaking violently around her. Below, the great door split wider, and something vast pressed against it. An arm, impossibly large, skin stretched thin over bones that scraped like stone. The hatch creaked as she slammed her shoulder against it. Once, twice. It gave way, bursting open into cold night air. Sarah hauled herself through, collapsing onto wet grass. For the first time in hours, she was outside. Or so she thought. When she lifted her head, her breath caught in her throat. The house loomed before her still, but now there were dozens of them. Row after row, stretching endlessly under the moonlight. Each one with a red door. Sarah staggered to her feet, legs trembling, breath ragged in the cold night air. The grass beneath her boots was slick, glistening as though dew had fallen thick. But when she touched it, her fingers came away black. Her gaze lifted, and her stomach clenched. Houses stretched in every direction, row after row, each identical to the one she had entered. Their roofs slouched, their windows dull and hollow, their porches strangled with vines. Every facade wore the same crooked smile of wood and shadow, and every house had a door painted red. Some pulsed faintly, as if alive. Others oozed black fluid from their seams. A few stood wide open, revealing only darkness inside, thick as tar. Sarah staggered backward, shaking her head. No, this isn't real. The night sky above was starless, moonlight too bright, falling flat across the field without warmth. The air was silent, not a cricket, not a breeze, until the sound came. Knocking. All at once, every red door rattled. Thousands of them. The sound rolled across the field like thunder. Knock. 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 Sarah clamped her hands over her ears, but the vibration traveled through the ground, into her bones. Her teeth ached with it. A whisper slithered through the field, soft yet reaching her from every direction. Choose one. Her chest heaved. No, I won't. The nearest door throbbed, paint glistening wet. Its knob turned slowly, creaking in the still air. Another door down the road did the same. Then another. One by one, the houses awoke, their doors shifting, straining. Sarah stumbled backward, nearly falling. There has to be a way out, she muttered, her voice shaking. There has to be. She turned, sprinting through the field. Grass clutched at her legs, wet and heavy, sucking at her boots. Her breath came ragged, flashlight beam bouncing wildly across endless facades. No matter how far she ran, the rows continued, house after house after house. Then, ahead she saw it. One house stood different. Smaller, sagging deeper into the earth, its red door darker, almost black. The paint didn't pulse, it bled, rivulets dripping down the steps. Her grandmother's voice drifted from within, tired, urgent. Sarah, this one. It's the only way. Sarah skidded to a stop in front of the smaller house. Her breath came in jagged bursts, lungs raw, sweat freezing cold against her skin. The structure leaned as though half swallowed by the earth, its walls sagging, its roof bowing like a spine bent under invisible weight. The red door bled. Thick rivulets of paint, or was it blood, dripped down the steps, pooling dark on the grass. Unlike the others, it did not pulse or rattle. It simply wept. Her grandmother's voice seeped from within. Sarah, quickly! Before the others find you! Sarah's hand shook as she raised the flashlight. The windows of the house were black holes, curtains torn, edges crawling with vines. She swept the beam higher and nearly dropped it. Faces pressed against the glass. Dozens of them, pale and silent, their eyes wide, mouths open in frozen screams. None moved. She staggered back, bow rising in her throat. This isn't real. You're not her. You can't be her. The voice grew sharper, pleading. It's me. It's always been me. I left you the letters, didn't I? I brought you here so you could finish what I couldn't. Sarah's knees threatened to buckle. The memory of the envelope, the familiar handwriting, flashed through her mind. Had it been her grandmother after all? Or the house writing through her hand? From behind her, the knocking began again. Louder this time, rolling across the endless field. Thousands of doors hammering in unison. Knock. 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 The smaller house shuddered at the sound. Its door wept faster, streams spilling down the steps. The knob rattled weakly. Her grandmother's voice dropped low, trembling with urgency. If you don't choose, they will. And they won't stop until you're gone. Sarah's pulse thundered in her ears. Her body ached with exhaustion, every muscle quivering. The field stretched forever, every house waiting, knocking, begging. Only this one stood different, bleeding and sagging, calling her by name. She reached out, her fingers hovering inches from the wet, gleaming wood. The surface radiated cold, seeping into her skin even before she touched it. The voices of the other doors swelled, furious now, overlapping until they became one howl. Choose. Sarah's palm met the door. It was colder than ice, and it began to breathe beneath her hand. The door pulsed once beneath Sarah's palm, then swung inward without a sound. No hinge squeal, no thud, just silence, as if it had been waiting all along. The darkness inside was thicker than shadow. It clung to the frame, reluctant to let the pale moonlight follow. Cold air rushed out, sharp with the scent of iron and rot. Her grandmother's voice surged softly. Hurry, child, before they tear this world apart. Behind her, the field of houses roared. The pounding of countless red doors shook the ground, rattling her bones. She dared a glance back. Rows of facades heaving, doors bulging outward, black fluid gushing down their steps. Some had already burst open, silhouettes clawing free. Sarah's throat tightened. There was no time. She stepped inside. Instantly, the sound of the field cut off. Silence swallowed her whole, so absolute it rang in her ears. She spun, heart pounding, and found the door gone. No frame, no wall, just endless dark pressing against her back. Her flashlight beam struggled to pierce the black. It fell on a narrow hallway, its walls sagging, wallpaper peeling in long curls. The floorboards groaned beneath her boots, damp and spongy. She whispered, "Where am I?" The voice came again, closer now, though still unseen. Home. Where it all began. Her light swept over the walls. Photographs hung crooked in tarnished frames, though the images inside were smeared, faces blurred beyond recognition. As she moved closer, the photos shifted. The blur cleared. They were her. Not portraits this time, snapshots. Her in her kitchen 2 weeks ago. Her car parked outside her apartment. Her asleep in bed. Each photo impossibly recent, impossibly precise. Sarah staggered back, bile stinging her throat. No. This can't. The hallway stretched longer, new frames appearing with each step. More snapshots. More proof the house had watched her for years, maybe always. At the far end, a door waited. This one wasn't red. It was white. Clean. Bright. Its surface glowed faintly, promising something other than rot and shadow. Her grandmother's voice softened, almost tender. There. That one. That's your way out. Sarah's breath came shallow. Her instincts screamed not to trust it, not to believe. But behind her, the photographs whispered, her own voices spilling from their frames. Go on. Go. Open it. Sarah crept forward, each step dragging as though the floorboards wanted to hold her back. The white door glowed faintly, steady and calm, so unlike the red doors that pulsed like open wounds. Her flashlight flickered once, then died completely. She cursed under her breath, smacking it against her palm, but the hallway didn't darken. The glow from the door was enough to light her way. Too much, in fact. It spread unnaturally far, bleaching the wallpaper, erasing shadows until everything looked unreal, flat, painted. Her grandmother's voice whispered just behind her ear. That's it, Sarah. That one is yours. Her stomach twisted. Why would I trust you? The voice sighed, weary, pained. Because I failed. I kept the door shut too long. I thought I could outlast it. But it never stops. You have to finish where I couldn't. Her hand hovered near the knob, trembling. The surface radiated warmth, not the biting cold of the red door. Almost comforting. The photos lining the walls whispered louder now, each frame rattling softly. Her own voices spilled from the images, her laugh, her cry, her scream. Some begged, others warned. Don't open it. Please, you have to. It's the only way. You'll never come back. Tears blurred Sarah's eyes. Which one of you is real? Which one do I believe? The knob gleamed, as though hearing her indecision. She reached out, fingers brushing the metal, smooth, warm, welcoming. The glow flared brighter, filling the hall with blinding white. For a moment she felt peace, a weight lifting from her chest, her heartbeat slowing. And then, beneath the calm, she heard it. A heartbeat. Not hers. not the houses. Something vast and slow, pulsing behind the door, each throb shaking the knob beneath her fingers. Her breath caught. She jerked her hand back as the glow dimmed slightly, as though sulking. The voice behind her sharpened, losing its tenderness. "Don't fight me, Sarah. You're wasting time. Choose." Her gaze darted back down the hall. The photographs were weeping now, black fluid streaking down the frames, faces of herself smearing back into blurs. The house was collapsing this layer, pressing her forward. The knob twitched on its own, turning slightly. Something on the other side exhaled. The hallway shuddered as if it were breathing its last. Wallpaper peeled in long strips, curling like dead skin. The photographs melted in their frames, black streaks dripping onto the floorboards that pulsed beneath Sarah's boots. The white door gleamed steadily, the only thing untouched. Its glow seemed almost kind. Almost. "Open it!" her grandmother's voice urged, sharp now, less pleading than commanding. "It's the only way you'll leave." Sarah shook her head, chest heaving. "Every door is a lie. You said the red door was death. Now this one, what if it's worse?" The voice shifted, multiplying, layering with others. Dozens. Hundreds. All her own. Every possible version of herself speaking at once. "You already opened it. You never had a choice. You've been here before. You'll come back again." The white glow flared, washing over her hands, her arms, her face. Her skin prickled as though it were already pulling her in, rewriting her with its light. Sarah staggered backward. The hallway behind her was gone. Not collapsed, gone. Only blackness stretched there, an endless void pressing close. The photographs, the frames, the wallpaper, all erased. Only the door remained. Her knees buckled. Tears blurred her vision. "I don't want this," she whispered. "I never wanted any of this." The knob turned on its own, slow and patient. A thin crack of white widened, spilling brilliance into the hall. The heartbeat grew louder, shaking her chest with each throb. Through the widening gap, she glimpsed shapes. Not walls. Not rooms. Faces. Her own face, multiplied thousands of times, gazing back at her from the glow. Some smiled, some wept, some screamed silently. All waiting. The voice shifted once more, a chorus of Sarah's. "You're the door, Sarah. You always were." The floor dropped beneath her. She screamed, reaching blindly, and her palm landed on the knob. The door yawned open, flooding her vision with white so bright it erased the world. Her last thought before the light consumed her was not of the house, or her grandmother, or the voices. It was the certainty that she had not chosen at all. The house had. The white swallowed everything. Sarah clutched her eyes shut, but the glow bled through her lids, hot and invasive, like sunlight pressed directly into her skull. Her body felt weightless and heavy all at once, drifting without ground, without air. When she opened her eyes, the light had softened. She stood in a room. Its walls were white, seamless, stretching upward into a ceiling she could not see. No corners, no shadows, just smooth surfaces that seemed to breathe faintly, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that echoed the massive heartbeat. At the center of the room sat a chair, and in the chair someone waited. Sarah's stomach dropped. It was herself. Older, wrinkled, hair silver and thin, face lined but unmistakably hers. The older Sarah lifted her head slowly, eyes dull but aware, and whispered, "I told you not to come." Sarah staggered closer, breath catching. What is this? Who are you?" The elder version of her smiled faintly, though it was tired, broken. "I am you. Or I was. I made the same choices. I opened the doors. And the house." Her hand trembled as she gestured to the walls. "The house doesn't end. It just rewrites." Sarah shook her head violently. "No. You're not me. You're another trick." But the woman's eyes, her own eyes, just older, welled with tears. "Do you think you were the first? Do you think you'll be the last? Every time we resist, it changes the story. Every time we choose, it bends the choice. There's no leaving, Sarah. Only moving deeper. The walls pulsed in agreement, their pale surfaces shivering like muscle. Sarah's knees weakened. Then what's the point? Why call me here at all? The elder Sarah's smile cracked into a grimace. Because it feeds on the trying. On the struggle. On hope. Her voice lowered, breaking. And now it will wear your face next. The heartbeat thundered louder. The walls rippled. The chair dissolved into the floor, dragging the elder Sarah down. She did not fight, only watched with hollow eyes as she sank into the white, whispering one final word. Run! The walls split open, and dozens of white doors appeared all around, every one glowing, every knob turning at once. The room fractured as the walls split apart, birthing door after door. They spread outward in a dizzying spiral, each one glowing faintly, each knob turning with a soft, deliberate click. Sarah's pulse hammered. She spun in place, surrounded on every side by herself. Through the cracks of the nearest door, she glimpsed another Sarah, this one younger, maybe 15, clutching her schoolbooks to her chest. The girl looked terrified, mouthing silent pleas through the glowing gap. Sarah stumbled backward, colliding with another door. It swung an inch, and through it she saw herself at 30, older, weary, standing in her own kitchen, a knife clutched in her hand as though defending against something unseen. Every door showed a version of her. Some smiling, some screaming, some lifeless on the floor. The voices spilled out at once, overlapping in a storm of sound. Choose me. Don't open it. Please, let me out. You'll kill us all. Her throat tightened. She clamped her hands over her ears, but the voices rang inside her head. The glow brightened, pulsing in rhythm with her panicked heart. One door burst wide, slamming against the white floor. From it staggered a Sarah covered in blood, her face pale, her eyes wide and wild. She lunged forward, grabbing Sarah's arm. Listen to me, the bloody virgin gasped, voice ragged. They don't want doors, they want you to be the door. Don't. She dissolved into mist before finishing, crumbling into the white air like ashen wind. Sarah screamed, stumbling away. More doors swung open, some vomiting smoke, others spilling black fluid. Shapes began to emerge, distorted versions of herself, eyeless, faceless, skeletal. They crawled toward her on hands and knees, whispering her name. The floor rippled beneath her, buckling like flesh. She ran, boots slapping against the white surface, dodging the outstretched hands of her own shadows. One door loomed larger than the rest ahead of her, its glow colder, sharper. Unlike the others, it didn't show her face. It showed a hallway she recognized. The upstairs of the house. The red door waiting at the end. Her breath caught. Every instinct screamed to turn away. But the floor surged, forcing her forward. Her body dragged toward the familiar hall. The voices swelled, a cacophony of herself screaming in every tone. You'll always come back! And the door yawned open to swallow her whole. Sarah stumbled through the door and collapsed onto wooden floorboards. They were warped and groaning, familiar beneath her hands. When she lifted her head, her stomach dropped. The hallway stretched long and narrow, lined with the same crooked portraits. Their eyes followed her as before. At the far end stood the red door, its surface wet with fresh paint, its brass knob glinting faintly in the dim light. No, her voice cracked. Not again. I already fought you. I already broke you. The door pulsed once, paint bubbling, a heartbeat of its own. Behind her, she dared a glance back. The glowing white door she had come through was gone. Only wallpaper and wood remained. She was sealed in. Her flashlight flickered back to life in her trembling hand. She swept the beam across the portraits, heart sinking. They were different this time. Not her grandmother. Not strangers. All of them were Sarah. Every painting showed her at different ages, different poses, different expressions. Some smiled faintly, some wept, some clawed desperately at the frame as though trying to escape. The whispers started again, seeping from their painted mouths. Open it. It's waiting. You can't leave until you do. Sarah backed into the wall, tears burning her eyes. I won't be your door. The red door rattled violently, shaking in its frame. Black fluid bled from beneath it, seeping down the hall toward her boots. The portraits moaned, their eyes rolling back, mouths stretching wide. The house itself groaned, walls bowing inward, ceiling splintering as skeletal hands punched through the plaster, clawing the air. The knob turned halfway on its own, brass squealing. Sarah's flashlight beam trembled as it caught the knob, glistening wet as though alive. She remembered the shattered key, the broken chains, the endless doors. All of it had led her back here. The portraits screamed in unison. The floor buckled. The knob jerked again, turning further. Her own voice erupted from every wall, every frame, every shadow. You were always going to open it. The latch clicked. The door began to swing wide. The latch snapped, echoing like a gunshot down the hallway. Sarah's legs locked, breath caught in her throat. She wanted to run, to throw herself into a wall, to do anything but watch. But her eyes wouldn't leave the door. The redwood split down the center, edges curling outward. The paint dripped in thick rivulets, steaming where it struck the floorboards. Beyond the widening gap was not another room, not even shadow, only vast, quivering darkness, alive with motion. A hand shot out. It slammed against the frame, pale and enormous, fingers tipped with nails like broken glass. The wood cracked under its grip, splinters flying. Another hand followed, gripping the other side. The doorframe bowed outward, ready to snap. The portraits shrieked, their voices blending into a single piercing wail. Sarah dropped her flashlight to cover her ears, but the light rolled across the hall, landing near the opening. In its beam, she saw the face. It wasn't her grandmother. It wasn't even human. It was her. Her own features, stretched grotesque, magnified into something vast. The eyes were bottomless pits. The mouth split wide in a grin that reached nearly to the ears, teeth long and jagged. Sarah shook her head violently, sobbing. No! You're not me! The mouth moved, and her own voice thundered back. I am. The arms strained, forcing the frame wider. The hallway shuddered, beams splintering overhead, skeletal hands raining down like claws. The portraits burst one by one, each spilling black fluid across the floor. The house screamed. Sarah stumbled backward, slipping in the spreading black, heart slamming against her ribs. She thought of the journals, of the letters, of the endless doors. Each choice had brought her here. And now the house wanted her to see the truth. The thing behind the red door was not her grandmother, not her family. It was her. The doorframe cracked fully, wood snapping. The colossal face pressed through, distorted and writhing, wearing her expression twisted into something feral. Her own voice roared again, shaking the walls. You belong to me! The thing squeezed through the shattered frame, wood splintering around it. Its body unfolded into the hall, impossibly tall, shoulders scraping the ceiling, limbs bending in grotesque ways. Yet the face remained hers, warped, stretched, but undeniably Sarah. Her legs weakened beneath her. She pressed against the wall, palms slipping in black fluid. You're not me, she whispered, though the words cracked in her throat. The creature's grin widened, rows of jagged teeth glistening. I'm every choice you didn't make. Every door you wouldn't open. Every time you tried to run. The portraits along the walls joined in, their mouths moving in sync with the monster's, chanting her words back at her. I'm you. I'm you. I'm you. Sarah sobbed, shaking her head. No. I won't be you. The monster lunged, its hands slamming into the floor where she'd stood a second before. The board shattered, black fluid gushing upward. Sarah scrambled to her feet, bolting down the hall. The house warped as she ran. The floor stretched longer, walls narrowing, the red door always ahead, no matter how far she fled. She turned left into a side room, but it wasn't a room. It was another hall. Another red door at the end. Her lungs burned, legs trembling, but she kept running. The creature's steps shook the entire structure, rattling portraits from their hooks. Its voice thundered through the walls. her own voice twisted into mockery. You can't escape yourself. Sarah ducked into another doorway, this one leading into a stairwell. She stumbled down 2 steps before realizing there was no bottom. The staircase spiraled infinitely into black. Behind her, the monster's massive head bent low, grinning. Go ahead. Run forever. She spun back into the hall, chest heaving, panic swallowing her whole. Every path twisted back to the red door. Every room led to more doors. She stopped, panting, black fluid soaking her boots. If you're me, she rasped, then kill me. End it. The monster tilted its warped head, grin stretching wider. That's not how this works. It reached down, claws curling around her torso, lifting her effortlessly into the air. Her own face stared into hers, eyes bottomless voids. You're not here to die, it whispered. You're here to open. The monster's hand squeezed around Sarah's ribs, lifting her until her boots dangled above the fractured floor. Pain shot through her chest with every shallow breath. She clawed at its fingers, nails breaking against the slick, leathery skin. Its face loomed close, her own features warped into a mask of hunger. The grin twitched wider, teeth scraping together with a sound like grinding stone. Stop fighting, it whispered, her own voice layered and distorted. You've run through every door. You've seen every version. You know there's nowhere left to go. The portraits on the walls convulsed, splitting open like wounds. Black fluid poured from them, pooling deeper until it reached her waist, then her chest. The liquid was ice cold, searing her skin, pulling her downward even as the creature held her aloft. Sarah gasped, choking on the stench of iron. I'm not yours, she screamed, though her voice was hoarse. You don't own me. The creature tilted its head, sockets narrowing as though amused. Don't I? I am every choice you never made. Every word you never spoke. Every door you refused. I am the weight you carry. Its grip tightened, ribs creaking. And I always get in. Her vision blurred. Spots swam in her eyes. She kicked wildly, her boots striking the creature's face. It didn't flinch. In the distance, through the roar of blood in her ears, she heard something else, a faint ringing. A bell tolling, deep and resonant. Midnight again. The creature stiffened, its grin faltering for the first time. The portraits went silent, mouths frozen mid-scream. The house held its breath. The bell rang a second time. Then a third. The grip around Sarah loosened slightly. She sucked in air, chest burning. What is it? She rasped. The monster's grin twitched, skin cracking at the edges. Time, it said. The house is patient, but the doors are always hungry. And when they tire of waiting... The walls groaned. The floor buckled. New doors erupted from the black fluid itself, hissing as they formed, knobs already turning. The monster lowered her slowly, pressing her feet into the rising flood. Its grin returned, wider than ever. They make their own way through. The nearest door burst open. The black fluid surged higher, frothing as the new doors split open with violent cracks. They didn't swing politely on hinges. They tore, splintering outward like wounds forced into being. From the nearest one crawled a shape. It looked like Sarah, but its limbs bent at grotesque angles, arms too long, legs dragging uselessly behind. Its head lolled to the side, mouth gaping. The sound that spilled out wasn't words, just a wet, rattling hiss. Another door burst, vomiting smoke that writhed into a figure half-formed, her silhouette, hollow and trembling, its face a blur. Then another. And another. Soon the hallway teemed with Sarahs. Dozens. Hundreds. All wrong. Some eyeless. Some headless. Some skeletal, jaws clacking. Others bloated, their bodies slapping wetly against the rising flood as they dragged themselves forward. Sarah's throat tore with a scream. She wrenched free of the monster's grip and stumbled backward. Its massive form loomed, grin twisting wider as the chaos unfolded. This is what you are, it said, voice booming, layered with countless tones of her own. Fragments. Failures. Faces without choices. Every door you never opened, every life you never lived. The warped Sarahs turned toward her. Hundreds of them, mouths opening, voices overlapping in a storm of noise. Join us. Finish it. Open. The black water surged to her chest, cold searing like acid. She struggled to keep her head above the flood, gasping. Her flashlight bobbed in the current before sinking beneath, beam flickering out. The monster raised its colossal arms and roared, the sound splitting the walls. The portraits exploded, raining shards of glass into the liquid. The ceiling bowed, skeletal hands tearing through, grasping for her hair, her arms, her face. Sarah flailed, dragging herself toward the nearest wall. Her fingers brushed wood, a door. Not red. Not white. Just plain, splintered wood. It vibrated under her touch, as though alive. She sobbed, pressing her forehead to it. Please let me out. The knob turned beneath her hand, and the flood dragged her through. The plunge was sudden, violent. One moment Sarah was choking on black water, skeletal hands tearing at her hair, the monster's grin looming above her. The next, she was tumbling forward into silence. She landed hard on wooden planks. The air was dry, heavy with dust instead of rot. She coughed, gagging as she wiped fluid from her eyes and mouth, only to find her hands clean. No water clung to her clothes. No flood rushed in behind her. She turned. The door she'd come through was gone. Her chest heaved as she scrambled to her feet, flashlight clutched tight. It flickered weakly, beams sweeping across a narrow corridor. Unlike the twisting hallways upstairs, this one was plain, bare wood, simple lamps lining the walls, though none were lit. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Where am I now?" The silence pressed heavy, but not empty. It felt, waiting. She forced herself forward. Her boots echoed hollowly, every creak too loud. The corridor stretched straight, no branches, no portraits, no doors. Just the lamps, spaced evenly, watching. After what felt like hours of walking, she stopped. The air changed. Warmer. Ahead, the corridor ended in a room faintly lit by a single lantern. She approached cautiously, her heart hammering, and froze in the doorway. It was a dining room. The long wooden table was set with plates, silverware, glasses. The food looked fresh, steam rising from a roast, glistening fruit piled high, wine poured deep red. Chairs lined either side, and in each one sat Sarah. Versions of her, alive and whole, dressed in clothing from different points in her life. One chewed methodically, one sipped wine, one sat stiff and quiet, staring at nothing. Dozens of Sarahs, all ignoring her, as though she weren't there. At the head of the table, a chair sat empty. Her flashlight trembled in her hand. "No, no, I won't." As if in response, every version of her at the table stopped. Forks froze midair. Glasses stilled. Then, slowly, every Sarah turned their head toward her in unison. Their voices joined together, soft, echoing, inevitable. "Sit down." Sarah's legs wavered, refusing to step forward. The lantern's glow flickered over the grotesque scene, dozens of versions of her, seated in silence, utensils poised, food untouched now that their heads had turned. The empty chair at the head of the table seemed to breathe, its cushions pulsing faintly as if awaiting her weight. "I won't," she whispered. "I'm not sitting." Every other Sarah smiled at once. Not warmly, too wide, too sharp, a uniform grin splitting the room. Then they spoke again, perfectly synchronized. "You already did." Her heart lurched. She spun, ready to flee, but the door behind her was gone. In its place stretched only more wood paneling, seamless, endless. Her chest tightened. She turned back, and froze. The head chair was no longer empty. She sat there. An older version, hair streaked with gray, hands folded neatly on the table. The older Sarah smiled faintly, nothing grotesque this time, just tired. Her eyes glistened in the lantern light. "Come here," the older self said gently. "You need to eat. It's the only way forward." Sarah shook her head violently. "No. This is another trick. The older version's gaze softened. Maybe. But you're starving, aren't you? Look at yourself. Running, screaming, drowning. Don't you want rest? Just a little? The food steamed, smelling rich and savory. Sarah's stomach growled despite herself. The other Sarahs chuckled softly at the sound, hundreds of voices blending. Hungry, they whispered. So hungry. Sarah clutched her stomach, bow rising in her throat. She stepped closer despite herself, eyes darting across the table. The fruit glistened too brightly. The roast juices were too dark, too thick. Her light swept lower, and her stomach dropped. The plates were full, yes, but not of food. Each platter held pieces of her. Hands, eyes, strips of skin, rows of teeth glistening red. The versions of her seated at the table picked up forks again, resuming their meal. Some gnawed on bones, some chewed slowly, methodically. The older Sarah at the head gestured to the empty plate before the chair. You'll eat eventually, she said. We all do. Sarah's stomach heaved, bow burning her throat. She staggered back from the table, shaking her head violently. No. I won't. I'm not part of this. Every version of her froze, forks and knives hovering midair. Dozens of Sarahs stared at her, their identical eyes glinting in the lantern's glow. The older version at the head of the table sighed, expression weary. You said that last time too? Sarah's chest tightened. What do you mean, last time? The other Sarahs began to laugh. Not loud, but soft, overlapping chuckles that filled the room like static. Their grins widened, their movements synchronized. Knives tapped gently against plates, forks scraped bones. You've sat before. You've eaten. You've joined us already. Sarah's breath came fast, ragged. No. That's not me. That's not true. The older Sarah rose slowly from the chair. The others followed, one by one, until every seat was empty, the dozens of Sarahs now standing around the table, circling. Knives in their hands gleamed. The older Sarah's smile cracked wider, splitting at the edges until her cheeks tore. If you won't eat, then you'll be eaten. The circle closed. Sarah bolted to the side, shoving through the ring of her own cells. Hands clawed at her, nails raking her arms. She screamed, thrashing, breaking free just long enough to stumble across the room. The lantern flickered, shadows lurching. The walls stretched and bent, the wood softening like flesh. One of the other Sarahs lunged, knife raised. Sarah ducked, the blade nicking her shoulder. Pain flared hot. She shoved the attacker away, only for another to grab her hair and yank her backward. Her cry echoed in the warped room. The older Sarah's voice rose above the chaos, sharp and triumphant. You'll feed us, one way or another. Sarah's boot connected with the chair, knocking it into the crowd. She scrambled onto the table itself, scattering plates of grotesque meat and teeth. Her flashlight beam wavered across the far wall, where a door had appeared. It was small, low, almost hidden near the floorboards. Her only chance. She sprinted across the table, dodging grasping hands, and dove for it as the Sarahs screamed in unison. The door swung wide, swallowing her into darkness. The door snapped shut behind her, cutting off the chorus of screams. Sarah's breath came ragged, scraping her throat as she dragged herself forward on hands and knees. The passage was narrow, pressing close on both sides, its walls damp and soft, like rotting wood or skin. Her flashlight beam jittered ahead, carving a trembling cone through the dark. Dust swirled in the air, thick enough to choke. The silence pressed hard against her ears, though faint sounds trickled through, scratching, scuttling, the drip of unseen water. Her palms slid on the floor. She glanced down and gagged. The boards here weren't boards at all, but bones laid side by side, yellowed and slick. Skulls lined the crawlspace walls, half buried, their jaws agape. She froze, bow rising. Keep moving, she whispered to herself, voice shaking. Don't stop. Just keep moving. The crawlspace narrowed further, pressing against her shoulders. She had to turn her head sideways to fit, teeth gritting as splinters bit into her skin. Her flashlight beam jittered over the walls, and she realized the skulls were watching her. Their empty sockets glistened wet, following her crawl. Then one of the jaws creaked open. A whisper leaked out. "Sarah!" Her blood iced. The others followed. Skulls all around her spoke at once, their voices layered, some her grandmother's, some her own, some strangers she'd never known. "You belong here. You've always been here. Crawl deeper." Sarah sobbed, shoving herself forward faster, bones crunching under her knees. The crawl space stretched endlessly, the voices growing louder, closer. Her flashlight sputtered, beam weakening. She slapped it desperately, and a cone of light caught something ahead. A hatch. Metal, bolted into the floor, just tall enough to squeeze through. A faint glow seeped from its edges, not red, not white, but a dim, sickly green. Her chest heaved as she reached it. The voices crowded close now, skulls chattering, jaws gnashing. "Open it!" Her trembling hands fumbled with the latch. It screeched as she turned it, the sound tearing through the crawlspace like a scream. The hatch swung open, spilling the green glow across her face. She didn't hesitate. She dropped through. Sarah hit the floor hard, knees slamming stone. She hissed through her teeth, clutching her flashlight. The hatch above snapped shut on its own, sealing her in. The whispers of the crawlspace died instantly, cut off as though she had plunged underwater. Silence. Only the faint hum of the green glow filled the space. She lifted the light. The chamber stretched wide, its walls slick with moss or something like it, glowing faintly as if alive. The floor wasn't stone after all, it was flesh. Her boots sank slightly with every step, leaving shallow impressions that slowly closed. In the center of the room stood a pedestal. Upon it rested a mirror. Sarah's breath caught. It wasn't glass but water, shimmering, its surface glowing with the same green light that drenched the chamber. The liquid rippled though no air stirred. She edged closer, chest tight. Her reflection swam into view, her face pale, eyes hollow, lips trembling. For one fragile moment, it was only her. Then it changed. Her reflection smiled. Sarah staggered back. "No!" The reflection's lips moved though she made no sound. Her flashlight trembled in her hand. The ripples smoothed, and her mirrored self whispered clearly, though its mouth barely moved. "Let me out!" The glow pulsed brighter, flooding the room. The reflection stretched its arms forward, palms pressing against the liquid surface. The water bulged outward, fingers beginning to push through. Sarah scrambled back, heart hammering. "No, you're not me!" The reflection tilted its head, grin widening, teeth too sharp. Its voice echoed again, louder now. "I am what the house made you. Every choice you feared. Every door you left unopened. I'm stronger. Better. You can't survive without me." The hands broke fully through, dripping with glowing water. They clawed the fleshy floor, dragging the rest of the body out. Her own face emerged, perfect, but twisted. Sarah screamed, stumbling against the wall. The chamber's glow pulsed harder, every beat syncing with her frantic heartbeat. The other Sarah stepped free of the mirror, water sluicing off her form. Her grin split ear to ear. "This is where we trade places." The twins straightened, dripping streams of green that hissed when they touched the fleshy floor. The glow clung to her skin, veins of light pulsing beneath it like roots. Her eyes, Sarah's eyes, were brighter, too bright, like they were lit from within. Sarah pressed her back against the wall, chest heaving. "You're not me. You're just another trick." The twins' grin widened. "That's what they all say. But I'm not a trick, Sarah. I'm the version of you that stopped running. The one that gave in. The one the house accepted." It stepped forward, bare feet sinking into the soft floor. The room pulsed with its movements, walls quivering like muscle. Sarah raised the flashlight, beam cutting across her twin's face. The light burned against her skin, leaving faint scorch marks that smoked. The twin hissed, covering her eyes. "Always resisting. Always afraid of what you could be. Don't you see? You're weaker without me." Sarah's voice cracked. "I don't want to be like you. Her twin lowered her hands slowly, charred skin knitting itself back together. The grin returned, sharper now. You don't have a choice. It lunged. Sarah screamed, swinging the flashlight like a club. It cracked against her twin's temple with a sickening thud. The beam sputtered but held, searing into the twin's skin. The creature shrieked, voice splitting into dozens, echoing around the chamber. Sarah ran, boots slipping across the pulsing floor. But there was nowhere to go, no door, no hatch, only the mirror. Her eyes darted to it. The surface rippled, still glowing, the image now warped. Another hand pressed outward, another Sarah forming in the depths. No! She gasped. No, no, no! Her twin staggered to her feet, clutching the side of her face. Skin peeled back, revealing raw, glowing muscle beneath. Yet she smiled still, voice low and triumphant. You'll break before I do. That's the point. Sarah backed toward the pedestal, desperation surging. The mirror pulsed harder, more hands pressing from beneath. If she didn't act now, there would be hundreds. She raised the flashlight high, screaming, and slammed it down toward the mirror. The flashlight smashed into the mirror with a thunderous crack. Green light erupted outward in a blinding flash, flooding the chamber. The mirror's surface split, spider-webbing into 1,000 shards. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the pieces screamed. Each shard carried her reflection, fractured into dozens of tiny Sarahs. They shrieked in unison, their voices piercing, their mouths stretching wider and wider until the glass could no longer hold them. The shards exploded. Shrapnel ripped across the chamber, embedding into the fleshy walls, sizzling where they stuck. Some shards struck Sarah herself, slicing into her arms and face. The cuts burned hot, glowing faintly green. Her twin staggered back, clutching her head. Her grin faltered for the first time, splitting into a grimace. You shouldn't have done that! Sarah dropped the broken flashlight, her chest heaving. I had to. The floor rippled violently, convulsing like muscle under attack. From each shard embedded in the walls, a reflection began to pull itself free. Dozens of Sarahs clawed their way out, dripping glowing liquid, their faces twisted in silent screams. The twin laughed, voice cracked and distorted. Now look what you've made. The reflections dragged themselves across the floor toward her. Some crawled on all fours, others shuffled upright, all of them weeping streams of green light. Their eyes locked on her, empty but hungry. Sarah spun wildly, searching for escape. The hatch above was gone. The door she'd entered through was gone. Only the chamber stretched endless, pulsing with green. Her twin advanced slowly, ignoring the crawling figures. You can't break the house. You can only multiply it. One reflection reached her first, grabbing her ankle with slick, glowing hands. Another caught her wrist. She screamed, thrashing, but more and more clung to her, dragging her down to the fleshy floor. The twin crouched before her, tilting its head. Soon you won't know which one you are. And that's the point. The floor opened beneath her, splitting into a dark chasm. The reflections pulled her toward it, their hands tightening, their mouths stretching into her own scream. The last thing she saw before she slipped under was her twin's smile, impossibly wide. Then the green light swallowed her whole. The plunge seemed endless. Sarah tumbled through the green light, her screams swallowed by a roar like rushing water. The hands of her reflection still clutched at her, pulling, dragging, their glowing eyes fixed on her as if she were prey. She struck ground suddenly, though the impact felt muted, as though the floor absorbed her fall. Gasping, she pushed herself up. The ground wasn't stone or wood. It was a mirror. She staggered to her feet, staring down. Her reflection stared back, except it didn't move with her. It smiled. Sarah stumbled back, heart racing. The surface rippled, and her reflection climbed free, pulling itself upright. Then another, and another. Soon, a ring of Sarahs surrounded her, each one wearing the same twisted grin. Their voices blended, low and rhythmic, like a chant. You are the door. You are the door. You are the door. She shook her head violently, covering her ears. No, I'm not! I'm not! The reflections stepped closer, their bodies flickering between forms: child, teenager, adult, old, skeletal, faceless. Every possibility, every path, circling her like predators. One reached forward, pressing a glowing hand to her chest. Pain seared through her, sharp and invasive, like claws digging into her heart. Sarah screamed, shoving it away, but another grabbed her arm, and another seized her hair. They piled onto her, dragging her down to the mirrored floor. Their mouths opened, and her own voice poured from them, her screams, her cries, her whispers, all layered into a deafening cacophony. She thrashed, desperate, eyes darting wildly for escape. The mirror beneath her cracked, spiderwebbing outward. Green light poured through the fractures, searing her vision. The reflections screamed as the cracks widened. Their bodies convulsed, twitching, before dissolving into streams of liquid light. Sarah clawed at the mirror, trying to hold herself steady, but the floor gave way completely. She plunged again, weightless, tumbling through green fire. Then, darkness. Silence. Her eyes opened slowly. She was standing, whole, alone, and she was back in the upstairs hallway. The portraits hung neatly. The wallpaper was still, but at the far end, the red door waited. And this time, it was already wide open. The red door gaped wide, its paint glistening as though freshly bled. Beyond lay only shadow, thick and alive, curling like smoke yet heavier than air. It didn't wait for her. It breathed, exhaling into a hallway, tugging at her clothes, pulling strands of her hair forward. Sarah froze, every instinct screaming to run. But there was nowhere to run. No side rooms, no windows, no hatch. Only the open mouth of the door. The portraits along the hallway trembled. Their painted versions of her pressed against the glass, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams. Some clawed at their frames as though begging her not to go forward. Others pointed at the door, urging her on. Her knees quaked. Her throat was raw from screaming, from choking, from whispering no. Yet her feet moved. One step. Then another. The closer she came, the stronger the pull became, like gravity bending toward the black within. Her voice cracked. If I go in, do I end it? Or do I become it? The house groaned, beams straining, floorboards bowing. The red paint on the walls blistered, words forming across them in her own handwriting. You are the door. Her chest tightened until she could hardly breathe. She reached the threshold, the shadow washing cold over her face, her arms, her trembling hands. For a heartbeat, she thought she saw her grandmother standing within, smiling, arms open, waiting. But then the figure shifted, its face stretching, splitting into her own grin. Sarah's tears burned hot. I won't be you, she whispered. I won't. The shadows surged, wrapping around her waist, her arms, her throat, tugging her into the black. She screamed, clawing at the frame, nails splitting against the wet wood. The portraits wailed, glass shattering, painted hands reaching out as though to pull her free. But the house roared louder, drowning them out. And with a final pull, Sarah was dragged inside. The door slammed shut. The slam echoed forever. Sarah was swallowed whole, tumbling into black so dense it felt like tar pressing into her lungs. She couldn't see her own hands, couldn't hear her own screams. The house had taken sound, sight, even the beat of her heart. Then, faintly, light. She blinked through the dark. Shapes emerged, walls, but not wood or stone. They pulsed like living tissue, veins glowing faintly red, each throb in time with something vast and slow beneath her feet. She staggered upright. The floor was soft, spongy, slick with fluid that coated her boots. Her flashlight flickered to life one last time, beam cutting across the endless corridor. It wasn't a hall. It was a throat. The walls contracted as though swallowing. The air smelled of copper and rot, thick and damp. She gagged, covering her mouth, yet the stench pressed into her anyway, seeping through skin. Far ahead something glowed. Not white. Not green. Not even red. A color she couldn't name, shifting with every glance, sometimes purple, sometimes black, sometimes too bright to look at. Her legs moved against her will, dragging her toward it. She whispered hoarsely, "No more doors. Please! No more." But the throat pulsed harder, urging her onward. As she walked, the walls opened slightly, revealing alcoves. In each alcove sat a version of her, slumped and lifeless, heads bowed, skin gray and brittle. Some were skeletal, some still fresh, eyes half open as if asleep. Each one wore her face. Her breath hitched. She stumbled, clutching her chest. I've been here before." A voice rose, low and guttural, echoing from every direction. "You never left." She spun wildly, beams slicing across the alcoves. The dead Sarahs lifted their heads in unison. Their mouths opened, but no sound came, only black smoke poured out, flooding the throat, circling her ankles. The glow ahead flared brighter, blinding now. She shielded her eyes, but the light forced itself in anyway, burning behind her eyelids. A final voice, her own, amplified into something vast, filled the corridor. "You are the door, Sarah. And now, we open." The walls contracted violently, and the floor gave way. She plunged into the impossible light, screaming. The fall ended suddenly. Sarah landed on her hands and knees, palms sinking into something wet and pulsing. When she lifted them, they dripped with thick black fluid that steamed in the strange light. The chamber around her was vast, so vast she could not see its ceiling. The walls curved like ribs, streaked with veins glowing faint crimson. The air vibrated with the steady thud of a heartbeat, shaking her bones with every pulse. At the center lay the heart. It was enormous, bigger than a house itself, suspended by tendons of shadow and sinew. Each beat sent shockwaves through the chamber, rattling the fleshy floor beneath her. Black fluid seeped from cracks in its surface, forming rivers that fed into countless smaller doors scattered along the walls. Sarah gagged, bile burning her throat. "Oh God!" A voice rumbled from the heart, deep and layered, vibrating inside her skull. "You've seen the doors. You've seen yourself. Do you understand now?" Her legs trembled. "Understand what?" "That you were never outside. You were always inside me." The heartbeat thundered, louder, faster. The chamber walls convulsed as doors burst open, spilling shadows that staggered forward. They took her shape again and again, distorted copies grinning with her teeth. The heart pulsed brighter, fissures glowing like molten cracks. "You are my vessel, Sarah. My door. My passage to the world beyond these walls." She shook her head violently, tears streaking her face. "No! I won't let you through!" The shadows surged closer, clawing the floor, whispering her name in dozens of voices. Her own voice. The heart laughed, a sound like breaking timbers and tearing stone. "You don't let me through. You are me through." Sarah staggered back, slipping in the black fluid. Her flashlight flickered, beam cutting across the chamber. For the briefest moment, she saw a hatch in the floor, small, metal, glowing faintly white, out of place in this grotesque world. Hope sparked. She bolted, boots splashing, shoving through the shadows clawing at her. Nails tore her skin, teeth bit her arms, but she ripped free, diving for the hatch. Her fingers curled around the handle, slick with blood and slime. The heart thundered, shaking the chamber. "You cannot leave me! You are mine!" Sarah screamed, wrenching the hatch open. Blinding white light seared her vision, and she jumped through. Sarah tumbled forward, rolling onto cold stone. The hatch slammed shut behind her with a metallic clang that echoed far longer than it should have. She blinked against the blinding white light, her lungs heaving as if she'd run miles. When her vision steadied, she realized she was standing in a stairwell. But this one was different. The walls weren't pulsing flesh or warped wood. They were clean stone, smooth and cold, glowing faintly in the same white that had spilled from the hatch. The staircase spiraled upward endlessly, every step sharp and solid under her boots. For the first time in hours, days, she couldn't hear the house breathing. No whispers, no pounding doors. Only silence. Her legs shook as she climbed the first few steps. The stillness unsettled her more than screams. Her ears strained, waiting for the voices to return, for her grandmother's call, for her own distorted laugh. But nothing came. Step after step she climbed. Her breath echoed in the stairwell, the sound unnerving in its solitude. The walls glowed brighter as she ascended, until the stone nearly gleamed. At last she saw it, an opening above. A square of pale light, sharp and clean, unlike the shifting hues of the house. Her chest tightened. "Please," she whispered. "Please let it be real." She pulled herself through the opening, and froze. Grass brushed her knees. A breeze cooled the sweat on her skin. She blinked against the sunlight. The house was gone. No endless rows. No red doors. No sagging walls. Just a field stretching wide beneath a blue sky, dotted with trees that swayed in the wind. Birds circled overhead, their cries sharp and natural. For a moment, Sarah laughed, hoarse, broken, but free. She collapsed to her knees, hands digging into the earth. It was solid, warm, real. But then, a sound. Soft, familiar, knocking. She lifted her head slowly, dread pooling in her stomach. Across the field, nestled between the trees, stood a single house. Its door was painted red. Sarah's breath hitched. The red door across the field glowed faintly in the sunlight, as though it didn't belong to the same world as the trees, the sky, the grass beneath her hands. She whispered, "No. Not again. I got out. I got out." The breeze stilled. The birds quieted. The field waited. Then came the second knock. Louder. Clearer. It came not from the distant house but from somewhere closer. Sarah turned sharply, scanning the trees. Another knock, softer this time, tapped directly behind her. Her body went cold. Slowly she turned. There, only a few feet away, stood another door. Not attached to a house, not attached to anything. Just a freestanding red door planted in the soil. Its frame was rotting, its knob gleaming. The sound came again, knock, knock, from its other side. Sarah staggered to her feet, heart hammering. She stumbled backward, eyes darting between the distant house and the door in the field. Both pulsed faintly, alive. "Which one of you is real?" she whispered. The door in the field shuddered. Its knob twitched. Her chest tightened until she could barely breathe. She turned to run, desperate to escape both, but as soon as she moved, more appeared. All around her, scattered across the field like gravestones, doors rose from the soil. Some small, some towering, all painted red. Their knobs rattled in unison. Knock. 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 Sarah clamped her hands over her ears, screaming, but the sound vibrated in her bones. The grass darkened, blades slickening into black strands that clutched at her ankles. She yanked free, stumbling toward the tree-line. The forest loomed, thick with shadows, but at least it wasn't filled with doors. Until she reached it. The trees had doors too. Dozens nailed into their trunks, pulsing faintly, leaking black fluid that dripped into the roots. The entire world was made of doors. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching her head. "Please, I can't do this anymore." The knocking stopped. The nearest door creaked open, swinging wide. And from the black within, a voice whispered gently, "Then let us do it for you." The door yawned wider, spilling shadow across the grass. Sarah scrambled backward on her hands, dirt clinging to her palms, but she couldn't look away. A hand reached through. Pale, long-fingered, dripping black fluid that hissed where it struck the ground. It groped blindly, finding the soil, then another hand followed. A figure dragged itself forward, half-formed at first, features sliding across its face like wax. Then it solidified. It was her. Sarah's own body, her own face, but wrong. Too thin, too tall, the grin stretched wide enough to tear skin at the corners of its mouth. Its eyes glowed faintly red, pupils bottomless pits. It straightened, joints cracking, and turned its head toward her. Sarah froze, chest constricting. "No!" The doppelganger tilted its head, mimicking her words perfectly. "No!" She shook her head violently. "You're not me!" It smiled wider, teeth blackened. "I am what walks through. You are what stays behind." Her stomach turned to ice. "What do you mean?" The creature pointed at her chest with one dripping finger. "You opened, Sarah. That's your purpose. Every door needs a keeper. A hinge. A heart." Behind them, more doors groaned. Hinges creaked. Shadows stirred. Sarah's ears rang with the sound of knobs rattling, hinges shrieking, voices whispering in countless tones of her own. She clutched her head, sobbing. I won't be your door." The creature laughed, her laugh, but hollow, mocking. "It's too late. You opened once. That's enough." It stepped closer, grass hissing beneath its feet. Sarah scrambled to her knees, searching wildly. In the distance, she saw the lone house between the trees, its red door glowing brighter than the rest. Something inside her told her that was the heart of it all. Either her only chance to end it, or the final trap. The creature lunged. Sarah bolted toward the house. The doors across the field swung open in unison, a storm of shadows spilling into the world. Sarah's lungs burned as she sprinted through the field. Grass whipped her legs, now black and slick, grabbing at her boots like hands. Behind her, the shadows poured from the freestanding doors, hundreds of them, her own distorted forms loping, crawling, slithering forward. Their voices blended into one shriek. "Sarah! Sarah! Sarah!" The house ahead pulsed with red light, its crooked frame looming larger with every desperate step. Its door glowed like a furnace, paint bubbling as if it had been freshly set aflame. She stumbled, crashing to her knees. The soil writhed beneath her palms, slick and alive. Black tendrils shot upward, wrapping her wrists. She screamed and yanked, tearing free as the shadows gained ground. The doppelganger, the first to emerge, bounded ahead of the others, impossibly fast. It cut across the field to block her path. Its grin tore wider, splitting its cheeks to the jaw. Sarah skidded to a halt, chest heaving. The thing tilted its head. "Why run to it? You already know it's waiting for you. You've always known." The house groaned, its windows cracking open like eyes, spilling red light. The door rattled on its hinges, straining to burst. Sarah clenched her fists, trembling. "If it wants me, then maybe I can end this by going in. Maybe that's the only way." The creature's grin collapsed into a snarl. It lunged. Sarah ducked, adrenaline surging, and drove her shoulder into its chest. The impact sent them both sprawling. She scrambled up first, sprinting past its writhing form. The house loomed now, only yards away. Its door throbbed like a beating heart, black fluid gushing down the steps. The closer she came, the louder the heartbeat grew, until it drowned out everything else. She threw herself onto the porch just as the swarm of shadows reached the edge of the field. They stopped short, as though something held them back, their red glowing eyes fixed on her. The doppelganger rose again, smiling faintly through torn skin. "You'll go in," it rasped. "And when you do, we all follow." The red door shuddered once, waiting. The porch groaned under Sarah's weight, boards slick with the same black fluid seeping from the doorframe. It coated her boots, sticky and burning cold, yet she forced herself forward. The door towered before her, larger than it had seemed from the field. Up close, its surface writhed as though veins pulsed beneath the paint. Each throb sent a drop of red liquid spilling from the knob, sizzling where it struck the wood. Behind her, the shadows massed at the edge of the porch. They swayed as one, their many mouths open in silent anticipation. The doppelganger stood at their center, grinning with torn cheeks, its red-lit eyes fixed on her. Sarah's throat burned as she croaked. "You can't come closer." The creature tilted its head, amused. "Not until you let us. That's the rule." She turned back to the door, bow rising in her throat. Every path has led here, she thought. Every door. Every voice. This is it. Her trembling hand reached for the knob. The metal burned hot, almost searing. She snatched her hand back with a hiss. The door chuckled. The sound came from inside it, from the wood itself, low and wet. "You've carried me long enough," it whispered in her own voice. "Don't you want to know what waits on the other side?" Sarah clenched her fists, fighting the tears that blurred her vision. "If I open you, what happens?" The door pulsed harder, swelling like a heart ready to burst. "You stop running. You stop pretending you were ever free. You become what you always were." Her legs wavered. Behind her, the shadows leaned forward, hundreds of her own faces staring with hunger. The doppelganger raised its arms, voice echoing like thunder. "Open!" The house shook violently. The knob twisted on its own, slow but steady. Sarah grabbed it with both hands, screaming as the metal seared her flesh. She twisted hard, trying to wrench it back shut, but the door shuddered against her strength, straining to swing wide. The shadows howled. The floorboards buckled. And the latch snapped. The door swung open. The red door swung wide, and the world howled. A gale of heat and shadow blasted outward, knocking Sarah to her knees. The porch split beneath her, boards curling like tongues. Behind her, the swarm of shadows shrieked and pressed forward at last, surging up the steps. Their red-lit eyes burned with hunger as they funneled toward the open door. Sarah clutched the frame, forcing herself upright against the pull. The threshold yawned before her, not a room, not even darkness, but a churning void. Countless doors floated within it, suspended in black like teeth in a mouth. They turned slowly, endlessly, some red, some white, some green, some colors she couldn't name. The void whispered in her own voice, hundreds of tones overlapping. "You are the hinge. You are the key. You are the door." Her tears blurred everything. "No! I won't! I won't be you!" The doppelganger shoved past the others, towering over the swarm. Its grin stretched wider, splitting its cheeks open. "It's too late, Sarah. The moment you opened, you became passage. Step inside. Become us." The shadow horde surged forward, their bodies colliding as they pushed her toward the void. Sarah braced against the frame, nails splitting, arms trembling. The house roared, beams cracking, windows exploding. The sky above bled red. With a final scream, Sarah let go. The void swallowed her. She fell, tumbling between the spinning doors, each one opening as she passed. Through one, she saw her childhood bedroom, perfectly preserved. Through another, she saw herself older, bent and gray, whispering to unseen figures. Another showed her lying in a coffin, eyes closed, mouth smiling faintly. They all led to her. The voices swelled, a storm inside her skull. "Choose! Choose! Choose!" Sarah thrashed, spinning through the endless cascade. She reached for one door at random, desperate for escape, but it shifted away, replaced by another. And another. The void would never let her pick. Because she wasn't meant to choose. She was meant to open. Her scream tore into the void as hundreds of doors swung wide all at once, spilling their horrors into her fall. And the house laughed through every one. Sarah plummeted through the void until suddenly, impact. Her body struck something solid but soft, like flesh stretched taut. She gasped for air, lungs burning, her screams cut short. The endless doors above shrank into pinpricks of light, flickering out one by one. She staggered upright. The ground beneath her pulsed faintly, warm through her boots. She was in another chamber, vast, endless, but this one was different. No walls. No ceiling. Just an expanse of black horizon, dotted with doors standing upright in the distance like gravestones. They stretched forever, some massive, others no taller than her knees. At the center of it all, rising higher than mountains, loomed the heart. It beat slowly, each thud shaking the horizon. Its surface was studded with doors, thousands of them, some open, some shut. Every beat forced a few more wide, spilling shadows that stumbled outward before dissolving into the black ground. Sarah's knees buckled. "No," she whispered. "There's no end. There's never an end." Her grandmother's voice whispered behind her ear, close enough to feel the breath. "Now you see." She spun. Her doppelganger stood there, whole again, grin smaller now, almost pitying. The house is not a place. It is what you make it. What you carry. What you refuse. Sarah's throat tightened. Then how do I stop it? The creature tilted its head, red eyes gleaming faintly. You don't. You never could. You can only decide how wide you open. The heart thundered again. A fissure split its surface, green light spilling through. The doors studding it rattled in unison, thousands of latches clicking like teeth. Sarah fell to her knees, sobbing. I'm not a door. I'm not. I'm me. The ground beneath her split, and a door rose slowly, forcing itself into being at her feet. It was plain wood, no color, no knob. Only a frame. The voice of the house filled her skull, every version of herself layered together. Then prove it. Close me. Her hands trembled as she reached forward. The plain wooden frame loomed before Sarah, rising taller the longer she stared. It had no knob, no hinges, just a door suspended in emptiness. Her hands shook as she pressed her palms against it. It gave beneath her touch, soft as breath, not solid at all. Warmth bled into her skin, then cold, then nothing. Close, she whispered, shoving with all her strength. The door did not budge. Laughter rippled through the black horizon, the voices of her reflections, of the shadows, of her grandmother, of the house itself. You can't close. You can't. You can't. Sarah gritted her teeth, tears burning down her face. I can. The ground convulsed, and dozens of doors erupted from the black soil around her. They flung themselves open at once, vomiting shapes, her doppelgangers, her hollow selves, skeletal forms, weeping versions, screaming ones. They staggered toward her, arms reaching. Her chest tightened. She shoved harder. Close! The plain door resisted, humming now, vibrating against her palms. Its edges flared white, faint lines of light bleeding outward. The shadows shrieked, covering their faces. The doppelganger halted, its grin faltering. No, no, you can't! Sarah screamed with every ounce of breath she had left, forcing her body against the door, pushing not just with her arms but with the weight of everything, the terror, the grief, the endless chase. The frame cracked. A fissure split down the center of the plain wood. The light grew blinding, pouring into the chamber. The shadows writhed, disintegrating in the glow. The ground shook violently, splitting into canyons of white. The house howled through every voice at once. You are not supposed to close! Sarah shoved one final time. The plain door slammed shut with a thunderous crack. Silence followed. The shadows were gone. The doppelganger dissolved into smoke. The heartbeat of the great heart faltered, slower, until it stopped. Sarah collapsed onto the ground, chest heaving, ears ringing. For the first time, there was no knocking, only silence. Sarah lay trembling on the pulsing ground, her breath ragged, ears straining. The silence was unbearable. For so long the house had breathed, whispered, screamed. Now, nothing. She pushed herself upright slowly. The horizon stretched empty. The countless doors had vanished. The great heart was gone. Only darkness surrounded her, smooth and infinite, like the world had been erased. Her chest tightened. Did I end it? Her voice echoed once, twice. Then it was swallowed whole. Sarah staggered to her feet, legs quaking. She turned in circles, searching for light, for sound, for anything, but the void offered nothing. Her heart pounded louder in her chest, too loud, filling the emptiness. It was the only heartbeat left. And then she realized, it wasn't just hers. The floor beneath her pulsed faintly. Once. Twice. Matching her rhythm. Her breath caught. No! The silence shifted. It wasn't absence. It was waiting. From far off, a faint creak broke the stillness. Wood groaning. A hinge turning. Sarah spun, panic flooding her. There, rising in the distance, a single door formed out of the black. Small, fragile, its frame glowing faintly white. It swung open slowly, spilling a sliver of light into the void. Her knees weakened. "No, please!" "I closed it. I ended this." The voice that came was gentle. Her own voice, but calm, steady. "You can close one. But never all." The white glow brightened, pulling at her like gravity. Her feet slid across the smooth ground no matter how she fought. She screamed, dropping to her knees, clawing at nothing, nails scraping the black floor. The door yawned wider, the light intensifying until it seared her vision. She sobbed, broken. "Why me?" The void answered in a whisper, layered with countless voices of herself. "Because you open." And the light swallowed her. The light receded, and Sarah staggered forward, squinting as her eyes adjusted. She was standing in a hallway. Her breath hitched. It looked normal. Wallpaper patterned with faded flowers, a wooden floor scuffed with years of wear, a ceiling light flickering faintly overhead. For the first time, the air smelled ordinary: dust, wood polish, faint mildew. She turned slowly. At the far end stood a staircase leading down. To her right, a living room with sagging furniture. To her left, a narrow kitchen. It was her grandmother's house. Sarah's throat closed. "No, no, this is gone. This burned years ago." She touched the wall. Solid. Cold. Real. The silence pressed heavy, but not the same oppressive silence of the void. This was the quiet of an empty home, a place long abandoned. "Am I out?" she whispered. Her voice sounded small, fragile. She walked down the hall, boots creaking on familiar boards. She passed the living room, glancing inside. Dust coated the furniture. A blanket lay folded on the couch, her grandmother's favorite, patterned in red and gold. Her chest ached. "This isn't real. This can't be real." She reached the kitchen doorway and froze. On the table sat a key. Brass, simple, gleaming faintly in the dim light. Her stomach dropped. No! It was the key she had thrown away, shattered, lost a dozen times over. And yet here it was again, waiting. From upstairs came a sound. A soft creak, the weight of footsteps on old wood. Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. "No, please, not again." The footsteps grew louder, steady, measured. Slowly, they descended the stairs. Sarah staggered back into the kitchen, eyes fixed on the hall. The light above flickered, casting long shadows. And then she saw her grandmother. Whole. Smiling faintly, eyes warm. She paused at the foot of the stairs, looking at Sarah as though nothing had ever happened. "Welcome home, Sarah." Sarah's legs locked. Her throat worked, but no sound came out. The woman at the bottom of the stairs was unmistakable. Her grandmother, alive, her gray hair pinned back neatly, her eyes shining with warmth that Sarah hadn't seen since childhood. Yet Sarah's chest ached with dread. "You're not her," she whispered, trembling. The figure tilted her head gently, smile softening. "Of course I am. Who else would wait for you here?" Sarah shook her head violently, tears spilling. "She's gone. She's been gone for years." Her grandmother stepped forward slowly, the floorboards groaning beneath her slippers. "I've never left this house. You've never left me." Sarah's breath came ragged. Her eyes darted to the kitchen table, to the brass key gleaming faintly. It pulsed, almost in rhythm with her own heart. The figure's eyes flicked to it, then back to Sarah. "Take it, child. Finish what I started. It's the only way you'll be free." Sarah sobbed, stumbling back until her spine hit the kitchen wall. "Free? Every door is another trap. Every time I open one, it just goes deeper." Her grandmother's expression faltered. The smile remained, but the eyes hardened. "And yet you keep opening. Why do you think that is?" Sarah's chest heaved. She wanted to scream, to deny it, but her hands were shaking. She looked down. Without realizing, she had stepped closer to the table. The key gleamed brighter. Her grandmother's voice softened again, coaxing. "Be a good girl, Sarah. Take the key. Use it. End this." Sarah reached out, fingers trembling over the brass. The metal hummed faintly, alive beneath the glow of the overhead light. Her reflection shimmered in its surface. But it didn't match her movement. The reflection smiled as her hand shook above it, lips moving in a whisper she couldn't hear. Sarah snatched her hand back, gasping. No. You're not her. And you're not me? The figure's smile split wider, stretching impossibly across her face. Her voice deepened, layered, echoing through the house. Then who are you? The lights flickered violently. The house groaned. And the key began to turn on its own. The key spun on the table, rattling against the wood though no hand touched it. The house groaned, walls trembling, dust drifting from the ceiling like ash. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, shaking her head violently. Stop it! Stop it! Her grandmother's form blurred, skin rippling as though about to peel away. The kind eyes turned black, the warm smile twisting into a wide red grin. It was always going to end here. The voice boomed, her grandmother's tone layered with dozens of Sarah's own. The key lifted from the table, hovering in the air between them. Sarah lunged forward, snatching it in both hands. The metal burned, searing into her palms, but she clutched it tighter. No! If I have to be the door, then I choose what it opens. The house roared, windows shattering inward, shadows flooding down the stairs. The figure that had worn her grandmother's face stretched tall, bones cracking, skin tearing into ribbons. You are nothing but a hinge! It bellowed. Sarah staggered backward into the hall, the key glowing brighter, brighter, until it was painful to look at. The doors along the hallway rattled, every latch snapping open, blackness spilling out. Her heart pounded. Then let me shut you! With a scream, she plunged the key into the wall itself. The house shrieked. The wallpaper split wide, the boards beneath splintering as light, white, pure, blinding, poured outward. The shadows shriveled in the glow, the twisted figure howling as its grin tore wider, splitting into nothing. The light spread faster, swallowing door after door, hallway after hallway. The house convulsed, beams groaning, stairwells collapsing into ash. The ground shook as though the world itself was tearing apart. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching the key as the walls dissolved around her. The last thing she saw was the red door at the far end, trembling violently, paint bubbling off in strips. It slammed shut with a final thunderous crack. And then, silence. When Sarah opened her eyes, she was lying in grass. Morning sunlight warmed her face. Birds chirped overhead. There were no doors, no house. Just a field, endless and quiet. She lifted her hands. The key was gone. Only faint burns remained in her palms, shaped like a jagged circle. Her chest rose, fell. For the first time in what felt like forever, she breathed freely. But as she closed her eyes, exhausted, drifting towards sleep, she heard it. Faint. Gentle. Knock. Knock.